to order. I do wish to begin, though, by just sharing a few opening remarks. If you could just bear with me. It's a hot day. I have my feet in a stew pot at the moment of cold water, not a stew. Anyway, and I have some notes, but my intent here is just to speak with you without them, as I wish to speak as authentically as possible. So this is an incredibly complex time for local governments. Council, we've been working together in a virtual form for over a year now, and we've been working under this global pandemic for well over a year. In addition, we're dealing with the impacts of an ongoing climate crisis, as well as an ongoing mental health and opioid crisis. There's a lot happening. We're hearing more and more about the widening gaps in poverty, in homelessness and addiction, and how this is impacting our residents. And all of this is just capped under this heat dome that we're all feeling at this moment, with high temperatures and challenging workplaces. We also recognize that we have a troubling past as a nation, and now and for many, we've known there's more that's coming out, and there's going to be more coming our way. And so we're in a reconciling world together, and it's finding for everyone what that looks like. And for myself, I find there's no words to express what has happened over the past while and what we expect to see in the weeks to come. And to this, I wish to thank and acknowledge South Nation's Councillor Chief Planis and his councillors for their guidance, and certainly for their patience and understanding. I feel that the journey of reconciliation is one that begins with me and with you, with all of us together on our own, in our own journeys, to learn and to understand and to seek questions and to be patient and to observe. And we also know that no simple gesture will erase the past, but that we find our way navigating unfamiliar territory. I just find what I'm so proud of is that we are all standing strong in this together. I think the way to the future, and right now I feel we're all standing firmly, strongly together, and sometimes just even holding the reins as we get lots of great ideas and advice from our community. We thank you for all of those. And really, I want to express that we acknowledge and we hear what you're saying and how you're feeling as we reconcile and how we can do this work together. So what I want to do is just thank and acknowledge our council and our staff for listening to one another, to sharing openly with one another, for challenging, for your learning journeys. I wish to encourage you to continue with that, to seek out answers, to question what you find, to be patient with one another, to share. And I thank you for always reaching out to strongly and find ways to strengthen relationships, to make them better, to find better ways to engage and to improve, and to apologize when mistakes are made. So thank you for all the tremendous work that you're doing. It's heavy lifting, it's hard work. I know in a very short while, we did put out a media release today, a joint release, that we will have more to share in the time to come. However, we always agree that sometimes we need to not just react, but we need to listen and observe, and to stand strong. And that takes great energy, and I thank everyone for what you're doing. And so I will leave it at that. And I want to thank you all for the tremendous work and the many contributions you're doing, both here in Souk, but also with the external boards and agencies that you appointed to and serve on, and how you're networking and building out relationships further in the community. So thank you all for everything. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to get into our agenda. Just housekeeping, it is hot. Everyone's having different experiences with the heat. I will be turning my video off at times just to give myself some necessary cooling elements, and council check in with you on breaks and let me know how you're doing as well as staff as well. Okay, and the public, thank you for joining with us. So in our agenda this evening, our first item is, I do wish to acknowledge that we are gathering virtually and that the district conducts its business on the territorial lands, the traditional territorial lands of the Saucon Nations. And we respect our First Nation communities, and we value our work that we're doing together. Our next item is Ministerial Order M192. So that is that Council is holding this meeting without members of the public in attendance under Ministerial Order M192, as Council chambers cannot safely accommodate the unknown number of public participants wishing to attend, and that Council is committed to ensuring openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability through the submission of written comments and the provision of live and recorded broadcasts of the meeting. So I would require a councillor to move that, please. Moved by Councillor Logans and seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Thank you. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Next up is approval of tonight's agenda. And Council, there is new business items. So in the new business section, we have received correspondence in regards to 7.2, the development permit with variance, received by Mr. Mason, Mr. and Mrs. Burton, Mr. Medhurst, and Ms. Brown. And we also have a additional item 13.2, which is an amendment to the flag policy. So I'll look for council to approve the agenda with the inclusion of those items, please. Moved by Councillor Lajeunesse and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Comment? Go ahead, Councillor Bateman. Question?
No, I was attempting to second, Pat.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lajeunesse, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wondering if we could pull one item from the weekly correspondence, the item that deals with a motion M84, the Anti-Hate Crimes and Incidents Private Members Bill, banning symbols of hate act.
So what we can do there is when we get to the consent agenda, I'll look to you for a motion to extract that for individual discussion.
Okay.
Okay. All right, then, see no other hands, I'll call the question then. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous, thank you. So next up is our public and statutory hearings. So that would take us to I'll just ask our Deputy Corporate Officer, we have the public hearing statement. Yeah, okay, I see the order here. So I'm going to open up the public hearing with an official statement, and then I'll turn it over to staff for their report. Okay, so this public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act. At this public hearing, any person who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the bylaw that are the subject of this hearing. Copies of written submissions received to date are available. It is important that all who speak at this hearing restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaw, and it is my responsibility as chair of this hearing to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. For those of you who wish to speak at the appropriate time, please commence your address to council by clearly stating your name and municipality of residence. Then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposed bylaw. Submissions must be received before or during the public hearing in order to be considered by council. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation or submission. However, the main function of council members this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Everyone who deems his or her interest in property to be affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making his or her views known. Please note that this hearing forms part of the regular meeting of council, and as such is being video recorded. Videos and their contents, including any personal information disclosed during the public hearing, will be posted on the district's website. So on that note, I wish to now open the public hearing, and for the benefit of those participating, this is specific to item 7.1, which is the zoning amendment bylaw 817 for ALC, Agricultural Land Commission dwelling units. So I will now turn this over to staff, please, for your presentation.
Thank you. I don't have a formal presentation put together. It's a fairly straightforward text amendment that's being proposed to the zoning bylaw. And this came about from conversations with a handful of applicants for building permits who were looking to have an additional dwelling sited on their property. However, based on our zoning bylaw regulations for the RU1 and the RU3 zones, it states specifically that the additional dwelling would be for farm employees. And these individuals were looking to have additional accommodations for family members. So on a technicality, that wouldn't necessarily meet the farm employees requirements of the zoning bylaw. So looking into the Agricultural Land Commission Act and specifically the ALR parcels where they would allow for additional dwelling units, they are providing for family members to reside as another opportunity to provide affordable housing. As we know from our housing needs report, that a manufactured home is one of the possible affordable options to get people into housing for the long term. So in reviewing and discussing this with the Land Use and Development Committee and their recommendation that they put forward to council, which was supported to have this bylaw drafted, we're here tonight for the public hearing to look at amending the RU1 zone to have one additional dwelling unit, which is in accordance with the provisions of the ALC Act. So that would follow whatever provisions that the province is stating on this matter. The district would also follow suit and not be more restrictive. And then furthermore, in the RU3 small scale agricultural zone, we would have similar amendments proposed that it would be for one additional dwelling unit in accordance with the Act to follow suit with the province. And then also one secondary suite or small suite on a lot with a single family dwelling. And that's to recognize some of the RU3 lots that aren't within the agricultural land reserve, but looking at potential to at least have another second dwelling on the property or a secondary suite if they can meet the zoning bylaw regulations in place. So this is to help address and bring compliance and conformity with what's being provided for at the provincial level. And with that, that concludes my presentation tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Matthew. I'll turn now to see if council has any questions, and I'll take questions and then we'll proceed to public input. Okay, seeing no movement from council, I'll now ask our corporate officer if you could please introduce members of the public that are here to speak to Zoning Amendment Bylaw 817 ALC dwelling units.
Thank you, Your Worship. We do have one pre-registered speaker. I do see a hand up from another, so there may be more afterwards. But first up is Sherry Sutherland.
Thank you, Ms. Sutherland. Please unmute. And thank you. Go ahead, please.
Sherry Sutherland, Woodlands Road in Souk. And I've just got a very quick couple of things here. I'm speaking in agreement with the bylaw change. We own property on Woodlands Road, and we are one of the people that has applied for a building permit to put a manufactured home on the property for our daughter. As soon as this gets approved, we will be moving forward with that. Our property has been in our family for nearly 50 years. My parents bought the property back in the 70s, and this is the third generation living on the property. Housing is at an all-time crisis in Souk and the Greater Victoria, and by changing this bylaw to follow the agricultural land reserves, agricultural land commissions own policies, we'll be able to provide housing for a family member, our daughter. She currently has a greenhouse, and she has a garden out here, and she's out here as much as she can gardening, and hopes to provide food for the family as well as possibly a market garden. So we are one of the families that is affected by this, and I'm just here to explain why I want to do this, and just say that I'm in full agreement of changing this, and that's it.
Thank you very much for joining with us tonight, and for sharing and for joining us on Teams. We really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Lures, may I invite you to speak on this item? I see your hand is up, please.
Hello. I'd like to totally support this change to the zoning bylaw. I think it's totally necessary.
Yeah.
It's how we put a house on our property, same. So it's I support this zoning bylaw. So thank you very much for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Ms. Lures, for for joining, and thank you for sharing with us. Okay, Ms. Temple, can you please introduce the next speaker?
Your Worship, I don't have any other speakers registered unless anyone would like to indicate they'd like to speak at this point in time.
Okay, so I'll just look in the participants list. I'm just scanning for hands. I don't see any at this time. I think Ms. Lewis, may I lower your hand? Okay. Okay, so on that note, I will now close the public hearing for zoning amendment bylaw number 817. I'll just look for one final scan of participants. If I'm missing you, please just interrupt me now. Okay, I see nothing, so I now call the public hearing for that item has closed. And now council, moving on to the second part, there is the recommendation from staff is that council give third reading to the bylaw cited as zoning amendment bylaw number 817 600-87 2021. Moved by Councillor Logans and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Thank you. Any comments from members of council on this item? From the mover, from the seconder? Okay, see none. I'll call the question. All in favor then? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, so our next item is 7.2, development permit with variance for, I need my glasses, I'm sorry, for 2430 Phillips Road. So now I will turn this over to staff to take us through the report, please.
Thank you. I'll just begin here by sharing my screen. All right. The District of Sooke is the applicant for this development permit and is seeking a permit for the construction of a just over 1,600 square meter multi-use sport box recreational facility, as well as the associated 42 stall gravel parking lot on parkland that's located at 2430 Phillips Road. It's contingent on budget, so the district will also construct a 2-stall public washroom facility and approximately 175 meters of connecting trail. This application includes 3 variance requests to the zoning bylaw, which are 1, to relieve the applicant from completing the screening and landscaping requirements at this stage of the development, to allow gravel surfacing to be used for the proposed new 42 stall parking area and the existing gravel surfaced access driveway to remain as currently surfaced in lieu of the requirements for asphalt, concrete, or other permeable surfacing material. And 3, to permit only uncovered and publicly accessible bicycle parking at the site. The district acquired the 4-hectare site of parkland back in 2015, and the subject property is currently zoned P2, the community facilities zone, and is currently in an undeveloped state. It's located within the Sooke River watershed and is accessible from the shared access driveway located at 2448 Phillips Road with the Sooke School District number 62. The proposed multi-use sports box meets the goals and objectives of section 4.11, that's the leisure, recreational services and facilities section of the official community plan. The proposed development conforms to the required maximum lot coverage and the required setbacks for structures and lands adjacent to residential zones and comprehensive development zones as per its current P2 zoning. The district's recreational partner, C-Park, identified the community need for an outdoor boarded multi-use sport box in their 2015 strategic plan. Recommendation number 1 in the medium-term initiatives of the C-Park plan included an outdoor multi-use sports box in their list of required infrastructure. Additionally, the District of Sooke's Parks and Trails Master Plan from 2020 recommends the development of a lacrosse multi-use sports court for the subject property, which is the parkland site cited here. At this time, the development project is primarily focused on the recently awarded grant deliverables, which include the sport box, washroom, and parking. The proposed multi-use sport box is to be built to box lacrosse dimensions and will accommodate additional activities, including basketball, ball hockey, futsal, as well as community events. It may also be used for recreational roller sports. So I just got a site plan that was provided with the application. So phase A of the development project includes the construction of the sports box and the gravel parking lot and racks for securing the 10 bicycles. It also includes a swing gate at the east end, access driveway from Phillips Road, and bollards that be placed at the west end of the driveway access to restrict vehicles from going further west. Overburdened soil from the site excavation will be retained on site to create one flat area adjacent to the proposed parking lot and 2 other locations. Phase B of the development project includes the construction of a 2-stall public washroom facility. The budget will determine whether it's a pit or flush toilet that can be installed. Water and electrical services will be constructed from Cedar View Place along the existing Desire Line Trail. These services will terminate at the public washroom to service the washroom and future water fountain and any other services requiring electrical outlet. The Desire Line will be reinstated to provide a trail that is in line with the trail standards for the district, and hydroseeding of overburdened soil as a response to public input for level areas for unstructured play and gathering spaces will also be provided. So the joint SUC and C-Park project team has worked to secure an access agreement with the school district to provide temporary access through the property while plans are being developed for the construction of a new school. It's also expected that the school and the multi-use sport box facility will ultimately have a reciprocal parking agreement once the school has been built. Given the unknown layout of the school and construction timing, it's prudent to refrain from investigating and hard servicing of the parking lot and access driveway. The required additional screening and landscaping will be provided for the site during the future phase of development for this project. The grant application that is funding this project was developed in 2018 and ultimately awarded in 2020. With the lapse in time compounded with COVID-19 supply chain issues, it has the potential to significantly increase the costs compared to the 2018 budget. Staff is proceeding with caution and phasing of the project to ensure that the primary goal of the project is achieved, which is the building of a high-quality multi-use sport box. Tendering process will confirm costs for site preparation and the supply and installation of the sport box. Once completed, the district expects it will be able to initiate phase B of the project. Public input has identified the community's desire to have additional parkland developed and public amenities. While there is potential that these can be accommodated as part of the project in phase B, there will be no guarantees, and these items may have to be accommodated in future budget cycles. So with that, planning staff support the issuance of the development permit for the multi-use sport box, the 42-stall parking area, 2-stall parking, a public washroom facility, permitting the budget, and a 10-stall bicycle parking area. Approval of the variances is requested so that result in allowing the required screening and landscaping to be completed at a future phase of development. To allow the use of the gravel surfacing for the shared access driveway in the parking area, as well as provide only uncovered and publicly accessible bicycle parking. At this time, the development project is focused on achieving the recently awarded grant deliverables, which includes the sport box, the parking, and the washroom facilities. And with that, that concludes my presentation for this item tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paulo. So what I would like to do at this time is I will seek if there are questions from members of council, and then we'll go to public input, and then I'll return to council to consider the recommendation. Go ahead, please, Councillor Beddoes. Sorry, Councillor, you're on mute still.
First creepers. I got to get my own sign out to say I'm muted. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's just I was on a meeting the other day, and it was brought up that we're taking 60 trees down to accommodate the sports box, and I was under the impression that it was pretty scrubby land that was given over. Can somebody from staff enlighten me if that's the case, or is the trees coming down for the parking lot, or maybe amplify that a bit?
So perhaps at this time, I'll pass it over to Laura Hooper, who is the applicant for the District of Sauk on this project, that can explain more the specifics with the application.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paolo. Through your worship to Councillor Beddoes, through the construction of the sports box, there are no trees that will be removed. There may be a few small, less than 4 meter, well, that would be an exaggeration, less than a 2 meter trees that could be removed during the construction of the parking lot. But right now there's so many blackberries, etc. It's really hard to say how many trees. So I'd be interested to know where that number of 60 came from. We're on the site today to make sure that no trees will be removed. And if so, we'll try to minimize it at our best.
Is it practical at this time to organize a little bit of a tour? I believe I got an email from you saying something like that. But I would like to go and have a look at the site, and I'm sure I know the Sea Park commissioners would like to go and have a look, and possibly councillors, to just actually physically see where this is sited. I have a mental view of it, but I would like to go up in person and have a look, and I need someone like yourself or somebody from the Sea Park to go with me to explain how it all fits together, and I'd be more than happy to go with my colleagues from council and certainly from the Sea Park commissioner. Is that possible?
Through your worship to Councillor Beddoes, yes, we'd be happy to host that kind of tour.
Okay, I'll work with you after about how we do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Beddoes. Councillor Bateman.
Okay, just in case our supplemental correspondents aren't with us tonight, I'll ask the questions they've raised. One concern with stormwater management and the open storm ditch running parallel with Willow Park Way. How is the project handling that issue?
Through your worship to Councillor Bateman, Andy Liu, who is the project engineer from the Capital Regional District, is also on the line. I'll defer this question to him.
Thank you, Ms. Hooper. Mr. Liu, thank you for joining with us tonight. If you're able to answer that question.
Okay. Basically, on this development, we look at the entire site. We know there are some potential issue with the stormwater management, but this is all existing precondition problem. So what we try and do is actually minimize any impact to the entire site. So what we propose, I don't think we'll be having any impact to or additional to the existing stormwater problem. So we want to mitigate all that within this project by minimize all these water problems.
Okay, Mr. Medhurst, in sending his letter, also notes that the existing open storm ditch is something of a wildlife corridor. Is that a consideration as well in your planning?
So that will be at the end of this project. We'll see how much money we have remain in the budget. So we probably will do some improvement, but we cannot guarantee at this stage. Our main focus, I think as we said before, we want to build the box, the parking lot, and hopefully the washroom. That's our main focus right now.
Okay, thank you. And I'll move on to the other letter. And primary concern here, it's a near neighbor up the slope who is primarily concerned about the location of the washroom, which is, yeah. So she's seeking, she says it's 58 feet from her property line, and she's wondering whether it could be moved to the other side of the car park. So through you to Ms. Hooper. Oh, go ahead, Andy.
Okay, sorry. So right now the exact location hasn't been really determined, where the washroom is going to be. So it's all, once we have the spot box in the parking area resolved, then we'll determine, where the washroom is going to be. So there are two consideration we need to when we locate the washroom. One is like, if it's only a pit toilet, that can be located anywhere. But if we are going to, in the future, or this washroom is going to be tied to water and power and flush toilet and all that, so we may have limited ability to move too far away from the spot box or too far away from the residents.
Okay, thank you. And finally, I have a question of my own, and that relates to, I had a couple of questions. One related to the gravel parking lot, and thank you, Mr. Paulo, for answering that. We're waiting to see how School District 62 moves on Sun River Elementary. The other question regards the bicycle parking, and I did note in the OCP draft that there's a reference to the need to provide secure, shelter, well-lit bicycle parking facilities at grade. And I'm wondering, is it a matter of cost not to put a rain shelter on those parking spots?
I think, to be honest, this project is already really stretched on budget. So I think that's one of the reasons we want to focus on the main thing we want to build in this case. So the spot box, the parking lot, the other supporting services, we'll look at it, in a later stage.
Yes, and they can be built out over time. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman. Other questions from members of council? Okay, I have one, maybe Mr. Paulo, in terms of the diagrams that you shared and where the trail will exit. So at this point, is it intent then to create a full linear trail that will then come down in, I think it's Poplar? Is that the cul-de-sac that the trail would come through, so that anyone, let's say you're coming through from Phillips and walking up that way, you would be able to make your way all the way past the lacrosse box, the parking, and then into Poplar to connect to Sun River Way, and also the other way back. So if you're on Sun River Way and eventually, say, coming over all the way from Brew Hills through our trail connection, could you then just go up Sun River Way, go on to Popular and go through that way? Or do you have to go all the way down to Phillips and loop around because it's a dead end? I know there's a large ALR parcel. I just don't, the site tour is a good idea, Councillor Beddoes, just so we can see how that connects through.
So I may have Ms. Hooper also speak to this a little bit, but as I mentioned in the presentation, so there's those desired line trails that have been established. So through the construction period, obviously some of those will be removed temporarily, and then I believe the expectation is that they'll be reestablished after construction is completed, so that those trails that people are familiar with can then be reestablished. It'll just be kind of a temporary rerouting until the construction is completed. Ms. Hooper, was there anything further to the expectations of the Parks Department with those trails and going through this with the phasing process?
I'll just clarify that it's not technically a direct connection to Poplar, but rather to Cedar Park Place that will take you down. And I was just trying to get my map open. It will take you down adjacent to Poplar Drive, and then that will then connect you to potentially the future Demammu Creek pedestrian crossing of Little River. So yeah, it's a really great trail connection, and we would be improving it.
Okay, no, that's awesome, because then as folks travel through that way, you could then, if you're coming from Broom Hill or Poyer and then coming through, then you could cross over and then you could go to Phillips, cross over Phillips to Willow Park Way and then go down into the river connection trail system, which would, yeah, okay, that's fantastic.
I will point out, Your Worship, through to, I think it was Councillor Bateman, I'm not exactly sure, that the project engineer will want me to point out that that is contingent on budget. Given these unusual times, we're not sure where budgets will end up with pricing with construction. So that is why we're phasing it and not committing our tax dollars until we're sure. So we're hoping that the trail connections will be improved, but that's not confirmed yet.
Okay, thank you. And just a that's fine. The question that Councillor Bateman raised earlier in regards to the correspondence from Mr. Medhurst, there is an existing runoff problem that goes on to Willow Park Way that we received correspondence on earlier this year, and I believe that engineering staff have connected out with residents to address that. So I think that's where the concern is, that would that be exacerbated or made worse? Or obviously we heard from Mr. Liu, they're going to be doing their part to ensure there's no overage, but is that problem fixed? Like, is that just rainwater running off the vacant lands? You're on mute, Miss Hooper.
Through Your Worship, sorry about that. I have been in conversation with the Director of Operations about that matter, and we will work together to make sure that anything that we do for the sports box doesn't exacerbate that drainage issue.
Okay, and it seems that there is attention on it to also resolve that existing drainage problem too, so that's good. Okay, thank you. Anything else from members of council? Okay, so I'll now ask our corporate officer if you could please introduce members of the public that are here to speak tonight.
Your Worship, I have Susan Brown, who's indicated she would like to speak.
Oh, hello, and hello to council members and Your Worship. I just want to point out, you've already, Mr. Councillor Beddoes has already had my email. We are a single unit rancher, and where you plan to put it, the noise is going to be horrendous. So I am asking the council to consider some noise reducing fencing at the bottom of our garden, as well as move the toilet block, particularly if it's going to be a hole in the ground. In weather like this, it will smell considerably. And we have spent thousands of dollars and taken our garden almost down to our boundary. That apart, the reason I want to ask planning is we have an easement on our property right in the bottom so that the sewers can be accessed by the local government if need be. Now, that meant that we could not build anything on that easement and we could not put up a hedge or a fence. If it was going to be a solid fence, it had to be able to be removed in case people needed to get to the main sewers. Now, I am saying what is going to happen when you build this with this easement. You know, I cannot build a hedge. I cannot plant a hedge. You cannot plant a hedge to reduce the noise because of this easement. So I am asking that you consider soundproof fencing, because the noise from balls constantly hitting a wooden box is going to be almost untenable. And I would like your views on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Brown, for sharing with us. May I ask staff just to reply, like we've heard, and certainly appreciate your concern on the location of a pit toilet in close proximity to your property. So we have heard that is a second phase. When we get more information down the road and we have an understanding of costing, council will determine, okay, which toilet option we're inciting. So that will come in the future, but certainly appreciate how you feel about that. In terms of noise cancellation and so forth, and some of the questions regarding the right of way, I'll just turn to staff, please. Maybe if you have some If you could provide some reply, thank you.
Certainly. So the first variance request tonight is that relief from the screening and landscaping requirements. So there is that intent right now to have those elements completed during a future phase of development, you know, within the abilities of the available budgets. So based on that request, that's something that can be discussed with the Parks and Environment Department regarding the future phases of development on the site. However, at this time, the application put forward is to just ask for relief right now during this phase of development to defer any screening and landscaping requirements. So the noise attenuation piece would potentially be considered as part of a future phase of development. It would not be considered given the variance request tonight from the applicant.
That doesn't give me any hope whatsoever. I'm really sorry, but you know, we were going to have to live through this noise. And
Okay, Miss.
Sorry, carry on.
No, Miss Brown. No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry. Is there more you would like to share? I just have something I think may be hopeful. So, but I didn't want to cut you off.
No, that's fine. It's just that because we have this easement and we bought the lot knowing we had this easement, that I cannot install a fence or a hedge of my own to run along what was the original Riverstone Drive. And now you're putting this sports box there, and there is no vegetation between us and the sports box and the toilet block, and you can't plant any because of this easement. I'm just wondering if Parks or the builders or whoever's looked at this has looked at this easement.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brown. I'm glad you're sharing this with us because it's something that we can all seriously take into consideration. Where I wanted to provide some hope, and maybe I'll ask Councillor Beddoes to chair in as chair of CPark to chime in, is, for example, CPark acquired a golf course, the Demamiel Golf Course, in recent years. And in that area, it was quiet for a very long time, and residents, as the golf course opened and got busy, have been impacted through the noise of traffic, through potential golf balls coming into property, and the noise associated with that. So where I wanted to provide a hopeful statement is that the CPark Commission, of which Councillor Beddoes chairs, as well as the staff involved who are partners and who are on this call, have been always trying to listen and to find ways to mitigate and to buffer and to make improvements that will work. So that's where I'll say that we'll learn more when this goes out and we have the costs in terms of the supply chain issues. But I just wanted to share that we're always looking to, we don't want to upset you through this project, but the partners involved here have always been dedicated and focused to find ways to make improvements to the residents impacted. And the golf course may be a good example of how we're doing our best in that area. Perhaps Councillor Beddoes, did you want to add, please?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the comments, and I understand. I can sympathize with the frustration. I think starting out, as you heard me earlier say, that to get a tour, because I basically at this time do not have a real handle on how the distances and the problems. So I would like the opportunity to, with Ms. Hooper, to go up there and have a look. And I can assure you that, you know, we certainly don't want to upset neighbors. You know, I'm sorry, but a lacrosse block is going to create some noise. But I think your thing is with the easement, you can't even protect yourself from that noise yourself.
No, I can't.
So anyways, I hear you. And, you know, one of the things about council and staff is problem solving. And you've raised a problem, and we'll go up there and see what can be done about it and to mitigate the noise thing. It is kind of an odd piece of land, but I think myself and fellow councillors need to go have a look and see what's possible. And I know Ms. Hooper will do that for us. So I don't have anything at this point to alleviate your concerns, other than that we are very interested in resolving this issue. So we'll work to that end.
Thank you very much, Councillor Beddoes. And I would like to be included because, you know, that is another problem we've had. We've only had 2 information leaflets since January on all of this. And you should be really including every single member of Riverstone Drive and Willow Park.
Well, that's the idea of this public hearing, so people have an opportunity to speak. And of course,
but some people, excuse me for interrupting, some people don't even know that they can do this. And for instance, my next door neighbours, they are not computer savvy, so they wouldn't know what to do.
Okay, look, I can assure you as chairman of Sea Park, if you wish to meet with me up at the site at any time.
I would love to do that, yes.
The only thing that I ask is give me a little bit of time to get my head wrapped around it too, because I'm be presenting this information tonight. You know, I've had a quick overview from the previous manager up there, but not to this level. So until I get my tour, get a grasp on what the lay of the land looks like, then I'd be more than happy to meet with you and anybody of your neighbors that wish to meet up there. Just don't bring a pitchfork, okay? Because I
definitely
do.
No.
So we'll have a look at it. You know, I can't guarantee anything until I know what I'm dealing with. So
thank you very much.
You're muted, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Lajeunesse. That seems to be our popular phrase this evening. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Brown, as well as Councillor Beddoes, and we'll be in touch soon. Okay, thank you. Ms. Temple, do we have other members of the public registered to speak on this item?
I do have a member of the public with their hand up, who I believe is named Rich.
Okay, Mr. Rich, if you could please turn your video on if you can, or if you could please just state your full name and your municipality where you reside. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, my name is, thanks for having me on. My name's Rich Blom, and I live in Souk on Riverstone Drive, actually. Thank you for, you know, having this forum and giving the public an opportunity to participate in council meetings during this this pandemic. It's a trying time for everyone, for sure. So I appreciate that. I don't really have too much to add. I just I've been in pretty regular contact with Christina Moog, and she's been wonderful. So thank you. You know, my kudos to her. The comments that I wanted to make. First of all, I don't think it's a fair comparison to compare the golf course to a sports box, and Councillor Beddoes kind of nailed it. There's going to be a significant amount of noise with the sports box, and I know that in phase 2 that there was planning or there was a plan for landscaping to occur. My concern is why are we asking for a variance on the budget or a variance on the landscaping to go in right now? Like, why can't we include that with phase 1? Is it a budget issue that we don't have the funds right now? Because as a resident which backs onto the sports box, I can tell you that it's very near and dear, more so to the people that back onto the sports box than anyone else, right? Obviously, we're more concerned about this, and the sports box is going in, but I'm just wondering why we can't put you know, put the landscaping in right up front when it's going to be done anyways, and this is going to really kind of ease tensions of the immediate neighbors. So I wouldn't support the variance request. I feel that the landscaping, at least part of the landscaping, should be in phase 1. The barrier between the sports box and the neighboring residences. And that's, I'm not really necessarily looking for a comment. I'm just putting my my 2 bits in. The other part is I just have a couple of notes here. With the washroom, I didn't realize that the washroom was potentially or going to be in a different location. I thought that was the location, but with the information that it's potentially going to be a pit toilet, it would seem to me that it would be very obvious that the location would be moved away from the residences and moved more to the center of the park, where none of the neighboring residents need to deal with the washroom, regardless of what street they live on. So I'm sure that's something that's going to be looked at in the next phases. And then the last thing that I have is I'm just wondering if perhaps some better mapping can go onto your website. I'm just looking at the map that's on the SOUP website right now, and it shows the proposed sports box and the washroom, and it shows the like all the residences on Riverstone, but it doesn't actually show the addresses. So looking at where these things, the gravel parking lot, where the sports box, those types of things, where exactly they're located in relation to particular residences, it's not clear to me. And the presentation that was made by, sorry, I forget his name, Matthew, was it Paolo? That seemed to be a lot more detailed than what's on your website. So perhaps maybe some updated information can go on the website. I think it'll go a long way to the residents. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom. I just want to reply that, yes, you're right. I agree that there is no comparison between a golf course and the box, the proposed box. What I meant to say is that the assurance is that the staff involved and the commission members involved and the council members involved in that scenario have been working together to alleviate concerns brought forward by residents as best as they can and continue to do so. So as we introduce this new amenity to our community, just as we've unveiled horseshoe pitches and improvements to other parks, when we hear of an impact on our residents, we're always looking to find ways and how to mitigate their concerns. So that was the comparison, and I raised that because Sea Park and the commission there and the staff have just been excellent in working with us jointly to resolve these issues. So I didn't want to say that, oh, it's the same type of noise. I just wanted to share that we have that established relationship and we're continuing to work together. This is a great opportunity, another one for us to partner on, and we're very dedicated to ensure that all residents impacted have their needs addressed there. In terms of some of your other concerns, Mr. Paolo, in terms of mapping, I do agree it would be helpful if we could see that updated with your map. It does help provide, it's very helpful, and I'll maybe just leave it to you if you could answer any of the other, respond to any other concerns raised. Thank you. Mr. Paolo? Councillor Beddoes, or Mr. Paolo, go ahead. There you are.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so yeah, in terms of the pit toilet, I know there's been a lot of discussion about that, and there have been different variations of schedules that have been viewed by the public over the conceptualizing of this site. So what's been contained within the application package and presented tonight is certainly a lot further away than one of the more recent iterations that was closer to the property lines of the residents in the area. And so we can ensure to make better visuals available on that website as well. And I see there's a hand up from Councillor Beddoes.
The other question was just in regards to the landscaping, and why is that being deferred, and why the variance on that?
I believe, and Ms. Hooper can speak to it more, but in terms of those budget implications, the primary focus is getting this sport box sited and begin construction on the property, and then there's the associated gravel parking area as well for this location. So as costs have increased since 2018, the project team is being very mindful of trying to get the deliverable, which is that grant funding for the sport box, and then through additional phases, meeting any of those other outstanding bylaw requirements, such as the necessary landscaping that could have been provided at this time, but staff are in support of deferring it until the whole project has been brought forward and actually constructed with the available resources. And as I mentioned in the presentation, anything else that is required for bylaw compliance and is not being funded through the grant could be discussed further through the necessary budget cycles to have that constructed. Or landscape.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beddoes? You're on mute still.
I get my own sign out again. Yeah, I think Matthew hit upon it. Is if the grant money isn't quite sufficient, we may have, as a council, have to find some ways to get some more money to do a few things up there. I don't know. Until the costs come in, it's hard to even say. The other thing is, I don't know whether the CRD and Andy have a more up-to-date drawing. They might. I don't know, Andy, do you have something more to share on that? Or is it, I know you have to go up to tender and do all those things, and you got to be careful what you put out. Do you have a more up-to-date drawing?
Yeah, we have more up-to-date drawing for the tender process. Basically, we have the for tender drawing. So we have a little bit more information compared to what we have now. So
can you share that with us?
Yeah, we have a more up-to-date drawing compared to what we showing on the staff report. The drawing is actually for the tender process, so we have a little bit more information. So can I make a comment about the vegetation, landscaping, the washroom and all that? So
yes, please go ahead.
Up to the chair. Okay.
So when I look at this project, I look at it from a much broader pictures. What we want to deliver in this project, not only just the spot box. I look at in the future, like is the spot box or this facility is going to be handicap accessible, or this will be impacting the future resident or the resident in the future. So that's kind of thing we, in the planning stage, we have looked at that, a lot of information, and look at the what we can do on this. So first of all, it's like, the pit toilet, when you look at it, we want to provide the toilet location, which is handicap accessible. So if we move the toilet in the middle of or maybe middle of the field, it's not going to be easy to provide handicap access to it. So I always, in my mind, it's like in the future, this is going to be a flush toilet. So I need that the sewer line to be close by to the flush toilet. But if it's not possible, it's not possible.
Sorry, you're breaking up a bit, Mr. Liu. You've gone muted somehow.
Well, maybe my computer is out.
That's better.
But anyway, so I try to make it a little bit more clear. It's like, when we look at this project, we look at it much bigger picture. What we're going to get in the future. Say, toilet is one of the main components for this project. So I'm thinking of, the toilet itself has to be serving not only the local, just non-ordinary people, but also has to be handicap accessible. So if we move the toilet too far away, or it's going to be very difficult for handicap access to it. So that's one of the challenge we are facing. And also in terms of the putting landscaping and all that, not until we have the facility nailed down, it's going to be very difficult to put in any sort of vegetation or screening in order to prevent the noise issue. So we cannot really work, jumping all over the place. I think we have to do it one step at a time to solve all these problems, one thing at a time. So I think this is my kind of my comment to this project.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Liu. Okay, I'll return to Ms. Temple. Do you have other members of the public to speak, please?
I don't have anyone else registered, and unless there are any hands I don't see, I think that is all.
Okay, so I will now conclude the public input, and to our previous speaker, we recognize the challenges of a virtual meeting. It's something that we've been doing our best to improve on for the year. It's the reality of the world we live in. And also, even prior to this, we always did our best, and we're trying to find ways to encourage public participation, period, whether it's in a virtual setting or even prior. And that's where we're doing our utmost to ramp up communications with the public on all matters. Even for tonight, we have a public hearing with 2 members of the public speaking on a change there, and that just seems to always be the case. And And so, yeah, it's ongoing, and we're looking to always evolve and to reach as many people as we can. So we do take that criticism as well. I know that our staff have been out as weather permits in front of Western Foods and the grocery stores and in the night market, continually asking, like, how can we reach you? How can we continue and improve? So it is an ongoing mission of ours. Okay, so I'll conclude the public input section and return to council and go back to, sorry, I'm just in the wrong part of the agenda here. So to go back into our report here, and I'll just ask council if there are any other questions before I go into the recommendation in front of us here. Is there any other questions? Okay. So the recommendation this evening is that council issue development permit PLN 01612-2430 Phillips Road for the purpose of facilitating the construction of a new multi-use sport box recreational facility on District of Sioux owned parkland located in the Sun River development area. And that council approve the following variance request to zoning bylaw number 600/2013 to vary section 3.18 screening and landscaping requirements to relieve the applicant from these requirements at this time and for the specific landscaping and screening to be completed during a future phase of development. To vary section 4.6 development and maintenance for off-street parking for surfacing material from the required asphalt, concrete or other permeable surface material to a gravel surfacing material in order to permit the construction of a new 42 parking space gravel parking lot and to allow the existing gravel surface private driveway access to remain as currently surfaced. And to vary section 4.10 bicycle parking requirements from 25% class 1 covered and private only and 75% class 2 uncovered and publicly accessible bicycle parking stalls to 100% class 2 bicycle parking stalls for the 9 required bicycle parking spaces. So I will look for a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Logans and a seconder, seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Thank you. Just to speak on this, and then I'll go to the councillors. I think that should council endorse this recommendation, what I see then is an opportunity to communicate out with a media release that this has been approved and that the most updated mapping and details could then be shared out, whether that's something our staff creates or the CRD or maybe both with where we're at. And then secondly, then council and staff can work together for a date that hopefully will work to invite members of council and CPARK Commission and staff together to tour the site. And then since COVID restrictions are relaxing, you know, maybe we can then also then send a sort of a block invite to the neighborhood there and say, here's where we're at. It seemed that, you know, part of it is the timing. My understanding is the slab and pouring the slab in certain weather conditions is important. Then with that detail, it'll all be shared out so we can continue meeting the timeline for the development of the site as well as the grant timelines as well. And also then we'll have more certainty on where everything is. The other, you know, if council doesn't support this, then the direction would be to return to staff and to get more details. And that's where things could shift and change. Citing could change, you know, I don't know. It'll just depend on what council deliberates at that time. So I am in support of advancing this work so that we can share that out with the community and continue on with the work. So Councillor Beddoes, I see your hand, and then Councillor Logans, I believe. Go ahead, please, Councillor.
Yeah, okay. I'm in favor of proceeding too, and I understand the warts with it. I would like to think once we get a better picture of the budget, because one thing we don't want to do is lose this nice chunk of money that was given to us to make our community a better place. If there is some extra work to be done, then I would like to come back to council and explore some options of getting some more cash to alleviate those things that were brought out tonight about the sound dampening and the washroom. So, you know, it may be we might have to scrub up another $100 grand. I don't know, but that's our job. And so I would support the motion for now with that idea that this is not forgotten, that we have to follow through with this. But I think we need to get on with it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Logans, did
I
you
will.
have your? Okay,
Sorry.
go ahead. Thank you.
I said no, and then I'm like, I will, as the mover. We're several years into this project, and I think most of us are really excited about it. And a lot of us have worked really hard to make sure that it comes to fruition, including people in the community and Sea Park. So I think right now is the time where we're going to hit some bumps in the road where things are actually being built, but we have to do it with an open mind and open heart and make sure we can get as much done as possible without being too disruptive, but understanding as neighbors as well that it is a big change in the community and there's going to be a bit of disruption while it happens, but we will do our best to make sure that it's not a long-term pain in the bum.
Thank you, Councillor Logans. Other members of council? Councillor Lajeunesse, go ahead, please.
Yeah, this will be a community asset that's been people have been wanting for years, and families have had to drive their kids outside of the community to participate in these type of sports. And there is a school site, a school plan for the same site, and so the two assets will complement each other in a big way. And I like the idea of inviting the neighbors to come over and meet with us when we're on site, and we can look at some ways of mitigating some of the issues that have been brought to our attention tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Bateman or Councillor McMath, any comments? Go ahead,
Well,
Councillor Bateman.
I'll jump in and echo what everyone's saying here. It's been a long time coming. I think Director Hicks raised this idea of a lacrosse box at least a decade ago. And yeah, that this little plot of land is destined for change, and there will be impacts on the neighborhood. And I really appreciate Councillor Beddoes' thoughts on how we as a council have a responsibility to ensure the best possible outcomes here.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McMath, any comment?
I think we've touched on all of it. There's no perfect spot to place a easily accessible sports box that doesn't affect any members of the community. So those pieces that have been brought up for concern, they're easily remedied, and there's different avenues as to what that looks like. But to stop the project, that's not on the table. So it's time to push forward.
Thank you. Thank you, members of council. And I'll just summarize, like, this has been a long time coming. So I believe it was 2010, 2011, when Sea Park Commission under Director Hicks and our appointee, Councillor Bev Berger, championed the grant, and we were not successful at that time. At that time, the lacrosse box was proposed to the area, which is now currently a bike park, and what was planned for this area would have been either residential housing, potentially, and then after the school site exchange occurred, there was plans to put in an all-purpose soccer field, football field, and ball diamonds of regulation sized. That became challenging though, because there would have been no on-site parking. And so the feedback from residents was, how could you drop in this amenity with no parking anywhere? So then all the parking would have spilled out onto neighborhood streets. And then also that's where council of the day shifted the funds to upgrade the existing fields over where they are currently, and we provided funding resources to the community association to update those fields. And then it was the case of what are the needs assessments. So that's where Mr. Pala referred to the 2015 strategic planning report that Sea Park did. And at that time, since we knew that those fields were going to be addressed, it was other emerging needs. Now, what about the lacrosse box and other community needs? And that's where knowing that the playing fields existed in the Sun River lands, as well as the reserve fund of the developer contribution that could only be dedicated on this this particular parcel of land for playing fields specifically, so not just for a passive park, but for active play structures specifically, then I brought the matter forward to council and to the CPARK Commission to consider this property for this needed amenity. So it has been a long time coming, and I thank council and the commission for their support of this program. And yes, we'll see lacrosse come to Souk as well as some other necessary recreation and trail developments. So thank you, everyone. Okay, so we have a motion. It's been moved and seconded. I'll now call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to the members of the public joining with us. A follow-up question that I have for staff is on the communication, so the media release and the updated mapping and details, as well as the arrangement of a tour and a public street tour. Do you require a follow-up motion at this time, or can you take that as direction through our discussion today?
Your worship, I believe that we can take that as direction just through this conversation and get those events happening.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm certain that if something didn't happen, that we would be certain to raise it with you, and we'll bring a motion forward as we need to. So thank you very much for that, Ms. Hooper. Okay, council, it's 8:15. I'm going to move now to our annual report, and then I'll seek to take a refreshment break or whatever break it is that it is. So we have here the annual 2020 report, our staff report, as well as the draft. I do need to make a few edits to my particular bio, which I do not feel are material changes on this annual report. So I'm hoping that we can just progress this necessary work, and then I'll get those refinements in tomorrow. So I'll look then to see if council has any questions about the annual report or anything further. It's awesome work, staff. Thank you. Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, I have a minor edit as well, and it's not material like yours. So I'll send that in tonight as well. And just thank you to everyone, particularly Ms. Mook, for creating an attractive, substantial report, and everyone who filled it with content. Thank you.
Other comments from members of council? Okay, so the recommendation is that council approve the District of Souk's 2020 annual report.
May I
So
interrupt?
that'll be,
sorry, Your Worship.
yes, Ms. Temple, go ahead.
There was one member of the public who indicated they would like to speak to that, and it is Moonfifth.
Okay, my apologies. So I'll just ask council that we table the motion to allow for public comment, because as chair, I've neglected that. So motion to table by Councillor Logans and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. All in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Please, sorry about that, Moonfist, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's quite a straightforward, simple comment that I have, and that is the appreciation from myself, and probably, I can't speak for the community, but I know that for myself as a member of the community, the detail, and me being a detail guy, is very impressive. A lot of admiration and respect for both council and the administrative staff. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for sharing those kind words with us and for joining with us tonight. Okay, so I'm going to lift our tabled item, and I'll then call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. So we're now, is council comfortable if we take a 5-minute break? And we will see you back here just after 8:21-ish. Thank you. Okay, welcome back. Do I have counselors back? Once I see that you're back, I'll, hey, thank you, welcome back. There you are. Thank you to Councillor Lajeunesse, Councillor Bateman, and okay, we have quorum, and I expect there's Councillor Beddoes and Councillor McMath is listening. So we're good to roll, and that brings us to item 8, report of the Chief Administrative Officer. So Mr. McInnes, you have the floor.
Thank you, Worship. And I only have one very quick update for Council today. The Healthy Communities grant that we submitted on behalf of the Food Policy Task Force that Councillor St. Pierre has been working with. We heard that was not successful, so the funding for that work has not come through. So I'm sure that we'll regroup and see how we move that important work forward in the future. And that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McInnes. I just threw you to your staff and our staff. I just want to thank you all for the work you're doing in our parks and also with tax collection. It's a busy time right now with a lot happening. So we just, I just wish to express our shared gratitude to all of you at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay, so next up is our public question and comment period. And I have received a request for a member of the public to speak on item 12.3, our business license bylaw. And I'm going to ask for a motion to suspend the rules and to allow for public input because per our council procedural bylaw, this item had already had public input that had been advertised and concluded. So technically it would be out of order for public input to occur at this meeting. However, just given that we are continually trying to outreach, I just figured I will just ask now and put for a motion. I don't have the ability to suspend these rules as chair, so it will require 2/3 vote. And my motion then would be that council suspend the rules and allow for public input on item 12.3 business license bylaw for a maximum of 2 minutes. So I've moved that. I'll look for a seconder, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Ms. Temple, I thought I saw your hand. Is that?
Your Worship, my hand was up because I believe we have lost that member of the public. I don't see her in the participants.
Okay. Well, maybe we can just deliberate on it, and you never know if someone joins in because of bad connection, and then we don't have to go back and deal with it, right? So thank you though for that. So I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. Any opposed? Councillor Logans is opposed. It's 2/3 to pass, so that requires 4 in favor, trying to do the math. So the motion carries with 1 opposed. And then we'll see what happens. It's just sometimes people come and go in meetings, right? So now we'll go to the public input or question and comment, and this is for all items on the agenda except for those previous items as they already had public input built into them. So it'll be from all remaining items, and I'll look now for our corporate staff to introduce any members of the public, please.
Your Worship, I don't believe there's anyone else who wishes to speak. I only see one member of the public left on the call.
Okay, so I'll call this is the last time for public input on tonight's agenda. So if you are observing and would like to speak, please unmute and indicate now, as this is the final moment. Okay, so I don't hear anything. I'm not receiving any indication, so we'll move on. And we'll move on to item 10 and Councillor Lajeunesse. We have the one item, which is the correspondence. And this is where you wish to extract. Can you just remind me of what number that correspondence was that you wish to extract for individual debate?
Not sure what number it was. It was seeking our endorsement for motion M84, anti-hate crimes and incidents, and private members bill C313, banning symbols of hate act.
Okay, I see that. It's item X in the correspondence block. So item X, by request by a councillor, any item can be just extracted like that. So item X is out. Is there any other items that councillors wish to extract from the correspondence block? Okay, so then I'll move a request then that items number 10.1 be adopted by general consent, please. So I have a mover for that. Moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Logans. Any comments on any of the correspondence? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please. And that's unanimous, thank you. And now we'll move to the extracted item, the item X. Item X, which is 2021 on June 21st, seeking your endorsement for motion M84, anti-hate crimes and incidents and private members bill C313, banning symbols of hate, from MP Doris Ma. So I'll turn it over to Councillor Lajeunesse, please.
Yeah, I just felt that this would be a good thing to endorse. He's asking that we ban symbols of hatred like swastikas, KKK insignia, and Confederate flags. And I think that that's a reasonable thing for us to support.
Okay, so I'm just, I don't have it open in front of me. I'm just wondering, like, what does the support look like? Are they looking for us to, is it to adopt a specific policy, or is it to send a letter or some sort of, you know, I agree with you. I'm just trying to find like, what do we need to do?
I'm guessing that he's looking for a letter. This is from Peter Julian, MP for New Westminster Burnaby, and he's seeking our endorsement for his House of Commons motion, anti-hate crimes and incidents.
Okay, do we know if there's a deadline for that to send, for that letter to go?
It was dated June 17th, 2021. I don't see any other dates here.
Okay, so maybe then the motion could be, I see a few other hands. We don't have a motion on the floor, but were you looking to propose a motion then that council provide a letter of support for this particular motion 884? Will that suffice, yes. Councillor Lajeunesse? Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Lajeunesse and seconded then please by Councillor Bateman. So do you wish to speak further on it, Councillor Lajeunesse?
No, I think it's self-explanatory.
Councillor Bateman as the seconder.
Yeah, just the MP has provided us with some sample language in his letter, so that could be utilized in your letter, or council's letter.
Perfect, thank you, Councillor Bateman. Councillor Beddoes? You're on mute.
Have problems. I have a lot of problems with writing a letter like that. One is symbols of hate. That means different things to different people. I mean, there could be somebody that says the Star of David is hate because they have a certain way of thinking. I don't have a problem with swastikas and you know, some flags and things like that, but I'd really loathe to have anything passed with it has to be spelled out a great deal more than that, because we have a diverse society in Canada and a lot of hates from previous countries, and to have that hate things right now, there could be some First Nations would not want the cross could be a symbol of some of their trials and tribulations. So I'm not in favor of this at all. I think that leave that to the federal politicians and keep us out of it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Beddoes. Other comments from members of council? Councillor McMath?
I don't think it's unclear at all. Like it's a pretty, like it's a crystal clear supporting notion coming from a community where there is less tolerance for inappropriate, unacceptable behavior. It's 2021, and it's time to take a clear stance on those issues. It's not a blanket statement for an overly sensitive group. These are strong symbols that they're referring to, and if it makes you feel better, we can articulate that in more depth, but to not support it because you're worried about going too far the other way, that's just not a stance.
Well, it is.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McMath. Other speakers, please. Councillor Bateman, go ahead.
Yeah, I've just looked up the motion by Peter Julian, NDP MP of New Westminster, and I could read it aloud. It would take about a minute to do so.
Go ahead, Councillor Bateman.
Okay, M84, anti-hate crimes and incidents. That, in the opinion of the House, the government should immediately counteract all forms of hate and all forms of discrimination, hate crimes and incidents of hate by A, working with provinces, territories, municipalities, and community-based organizations to put into place a reporting and tracking system for hate crimes and incidents of hate to ensure accurate tracking. B, launching a robust public engagement campaign across Canada focused on understanding and behavioral change that would clearly define inappropriate behaviors and communicate the terrible impacts of systemic racism and the serious impact of racist actions, gestures, and verbal abuse, and encouraging Canadians to stand up for others when someone is being targeted. And there's 3 more points. C, ensuring that comprehensive victim services are available to all those who are victims of hate crimes or hate incidents. D, working to eliminate harmful images and stereotypes present in media and cinema. E, strengthening all legislation against hate and introducing amendments to the Canadian Human Rights Act to ensure that hate speech no longer occurs with impunity. And F, ensuring that all federal government agencies and institutions consider the prevention of discrimination and the promotion of diversity as guiding principles of their work.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bateman. Go ahead. I'll just look, are there any first-time speakers? And then I see you, Councillor Beddoes. Any first-time speakers? Okay, I'll go to second time, final time, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I'll change my stance. I did not have the luxury of having that in front of me, and the way it was placed was very, very limited. And I guess that's bad me. I should have requested the whole thing to be read out. And I thank Councillor Bateman for doing that. No, I remove my objection. There's a lot more to it than just hate symbols. There's a great deal more to it, and I could support that legislation. So I think in future, if we do something, I guess I could have looked it up, but I think if we're going to present something, that's presented in a way that the information's in front of us. But that's also a responsibility of me. So, okay, I'll remove my objection to that.
Thank you, Councillor Beddoes. Other councillors? Okay, thank you all. Councillor Lajeunesse, second time speaker.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too hard on yourself there, Al. I think it was more my vagueness that was at fault in this case. But when I read it, I thought that this is something that we should support.
Good, I can get behind that.
Thank you, Councillor Lajeunesse. Anything else from anyone? And when I made those opening remarks, this is what I'm talking about, just the sharing, the challenging, the listening, the patience. So thank you for that. It's hard work, so thank you, everyone. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so moving on into reports. So the first one is 11.1. This is our Land Use and Development Committee recommendation on secondary suites, impacts and solutions. So great title, and I'll pass it over now to our staff to take us through the report and the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. So before you, there are 6 recommendations that have come forward from our Land Use and Development Committee. These are all based on discussions that we had at 2 meetings. So at our March 9th or our May 19th meeting that we had, we discussed the recommendations 2 through 5 that were put forward. At the time, staff had identified some resource concerns with implementing a couple of those. And following that meeting, a member of the committee who was not in attendance provided an email with some additional information that staff felt was of great value to provide back to the committee for further consideration. So then at that point, at our June meeting on the 16th of June, we were able to discuss in a little bit more detail possible zoning ideas that we could address some of these secondary suite concerns. So it's with that information that provided a little bit more discussion. Again, discussing some resource limitations that might exist based on some of these motions that are being put forward. Staff were able to identify 349 permitted secondary suites. When it comes to unauthorized suites, we don't have a current running tally. So to undertake such an inventory would be a bit of a challenge at this time. It would certainly need to be set up as a more complex project for us to dedicate staff time and build into a work plan and devise a strategy as to how we want to go about identifying and a criteria of what indicates an unauthorized suite to confirm that. So at this time, we were only able to raise the ones that we have on record in our GIS system. One of the discussion points that came up was recommendation number 3, which is the implementation of limited parking. Staff had raised concerns with that recommendation if we were to go forward. Certainly from the operations side of the district, there would need to be a study undertaken to define where these congestion areas are and how we would go about with the necessary bylaw requirements of drafting and what concerns there would be. If we were to implement that no parking bylaw, then there would also be the resource piece with bylaw enforcement and, how active are we on the enforcement side of things. So, what we were realizing was a planning research assignment to determine these things started to reveal implications on other departments like operations, like bylaw. So we had some hesitations at that point. Further, since authoring this report, recommendation number 2, in discussions with the operations department and some of the work that's undergoing right now with our DCC update and certain costs, while we could look at water billing information from the CRD to consider how it might relate to wastewater billing, I think we also want to take a closer look at what is the exact costs that are ultimately going to be coming forward with any kind of sewer expansion and things like that. Before we start to go down one route, we want to look at all those options. So that's another piece. So certainly recommendations 2 and 3 are something that I think need to be analyzed further before there's a set direction specifically for staff to go on for those pieces. What staff did ask of the committee was with recommendation number 4 that at least some direction be provided on how we want to move forward, at least in the interim. So there was support from the committee to maintain the complaint-driven process for unauthorized suites. So that would be following our secondary suites policy regarding complaints being lodged, and then we would then go and investigate. And if it was determined that there was an unauthorized suite, we would work with the landowner to go through the proper process to either bring it into compliance or go through a decommissioning process. And then with number 5, that was a recommendation brought forward from a committee member to prioritize unauthorized suites, that the focus be on immediate life safety concerns. Certainly going through any building inspection process, that's health and safety is a main concern. But through this, we couldn't just prioritize that. If it's determined that there would be a compliance issue, certainly we'd have to go through the whole process to determine how can we bring this property into compliance. And similar to number 4, if it's been determined it's unauthorized, we're either going to have them come into compliance and get the permits, or either make a decision to then decommission it. So there was just some clarity there. The most promising recommendation at the staff level for us would be number 6, and that's to take a closer look at the parking requirements, specifically the small lot zone, which is the R3 zone. And that's because it has the smallest parcel size, and that's where duplexes are being proposed and squeezed into these smaller lots, not showing that there's sufficient parking space, or that they're demonstrating that the garage is an area that can accommodate parking, and ultimately that's not the case. It's just becoming additional storage space. And so if you've got three vehicles in these duplexes and only 2 of them can park in the driveway, if that, then immediately you already have 1 vehicle per unit being located out on the street, and that's starting to generate some congestion. So staff felt, recommendation 3 was probably the most promising route immediately to do a deep analysis into this and see how we can tighten up some of those zoning requirements so that when secondary suites are being applied for, that they can meet all of a new criteria that can be set, specifically the concerns regarding parking. On the side of the existing unauthorized suites, there is potential to look at a path to compliance. The committee did not put forward a recommendation on that. We don't have a specific program set at this time, but perhaps in future, if that is a directive for staff to move on, that would be set up as a more comprehensive project that we can put forward a terms of reference and a work plan for that, because I see that being a very complex research project that would take longer than just a quarter or half the year, depending on a lot of the engagement processes that we want to undertake and getting feedback from the public as well. So those are a lot of the discussions that happened at the committee level, and with that, I imagine there's probably going to be some discussion from council. So perhaps at this point, I'll end that portion of this item for council to weigh in on.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pallo, for the report, as well as the committee for their thoughtful deliberation here. Okay, questions. I'll look to council for questions. Councillor Logans, please go ahead.
No questions, thanks.
Okay, my apologies. Councillor Beddoes, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot here, none of which actually lights me on fire. Other than we've always had the policy of complaint driven. It hasn't solved the problem. I like this path to compliance, but there need to be an incentive for path to compliance. And I'm wondering, and I'll just throw this out here, don't everybody jump on me, about a fine. If you're in a legal suite, or you are hosting an illegal suite, that there is a substantial fine if you're found to be in non-compliance. That may be a way to get people to step up and become compliant, because we haven't solved the problem. We have so many illegal suites out there, I think, I don't know. Maybe staff have more details on what's out there. But I think if you're in a neighborhood and everybody has an illegal suite, they'd be very reluctant to turn each other in. So I don't know. I have some mixed feelings about all this. So I just threw that out there for discussion point. So let other councillors weigh in on that and see what we can get some resolution here.
Mr. Pallo, do you have some feedback there in terms of the compliance or stiffer fines and penalties?
Staff would certainly like to see a path to compliance. We certainly want to work with the community and these homeowners that may have unauthorized suites, that we clearly explain a process so that they can either legalize them or properly decommission them. I think the biggest point for staff right now is making sure that we can address the strategic priorities that the council has set out for this year. And so at this point, in working with the Land Use and Development Committee, this is the available information that we can report back to council on this strategic item. And then from there, if this is something that is to further evolve into an actual program, that perhaps we look closer as to the strategic priorities and how this might develop into a more comprehensive plan, and staff can work that into a project work plan as well. But for the time being, and reporting on this item, this is the inventory information and some of the additional information that we can report on. But compliance is always the ideal route that staff like to work with the community.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bateman.
Yeah, through you to Mr. Pallo. Just a quick question. I know that all bylaw infractions require two complaints before we take action. Do you have a sense of how many complaints or actions have been taken against illegal suites in Souk in say the last year?
I don't believe there have been any active through to the point of having somebody come in and go through the compliance process or the decommissioning. Typically, when there has been a complaint, which the ones brought to my attention it's been rare. It's only been one complainant, and there hasn't been any subsequent complaints lodged against that specific suspected unauthorized suite. So it hasn't progressed any further beyond the policy piece.
Okay. I attended the May 19th Land Use Committee, and it was a really fantastic conversation. Thank you for leading that. One of the quotes I wrote down, and I'd just like your comment on it. We're not, and I'm not sure who said this, we're not turning a blind eye to illegal suites, but we recognize that they are functioning well in terms of meeting housing needs in suit to some degree. What are your thoughts on that statement?
I think there's multiple levels to that comment. Certainly there's a need for housing, and so if somebody has shelter, it's addressing that personal need of the individual. The next level from a local government standpoint is the bylaws that are in place, and from a building perspective, the life safety aspect, ensuring that those who have shelter that is, it complies with code requirements, and so we're not putting people, into a situation where a blind eye may cause a life safety issue down the road. I think some of the subsequent comments to that comment were that, have there been fire concerns and things like that, and I don't have any specific stats on the matter. Our goal is to make sure that people understand the rules, follow the rules, and get the proper approvals for it. And if they don't have them, that we can provide the education so that they can make an informed decision about coming into compliance or decommissioning, and that would ultimately be the goal.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll just also quote committee member Brian Butler, who said it's a hugely complex subject and a city planner's nightmare, but your path to compliance sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Logans, please.
I do have a question, I forgot. Through you, your worship, to Mr. Paolo. There were a couple of remarks about number 3, using signage in neighborhoods where parking congestion has been identified. My question around that is, what type of signage is this exactly referring to? Was there discussion around that? Because I've seen signage in other neighborhoods that is like parking for residents only, and then residents have to apply for a permit for parking in that space. And my concern would be just that folks might be afraid of doing such a thing if it might mean they lose their homes in the process. But I wondered what type of parking signage was that might include, or perhaps that's to be discussed at another point if this goes forward.
So the committee discussed all different forms of signage. So whether that was just a straight out no parking, so you could never park on one side of the road, or if there was a seasonal altering of parking, so you could park on one side of the road for part of the year and then it would flip to the other side of the road for the other half of the year. The residential parking area, so you had to be a resident in that area with the sticker in your window to say that you could legally park in that area. So they brainstormed on a bunch of different ideas, but ultimately left it at that it would be some form of limited parking. How that gets established, that would probably ultimately be done if supported through a staff exercise. But those were one of the limitations that we highlighted right now, is we didn't believe we had the resources to undertake a project like that to go through that exercise currently.
Thank you. Yeah, it seems a bit unnecessary. Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions from members of council? Okay, so I'm just going to ask our corporate officer, with the recommendations that you have here, there's all 6 listed. Can these be read and voted on as a block, or do they need to be individual motions?
Your worship, I would suggest they be individual. Just if people have varying thoughts on them, they may wish to vote for some and not for others.
Okay, no, that's great. So we're going to do that. So here we go. So the first off, that council received the report for information. Moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor McMath. Any discussion from members of council? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. The next part, that council directs staff to review CRD water billing information and determine how assessed data may relate to wastewater billing. The mover, please. Moved by Councillor McMath and seconded by Councillor Logans. Thank you. Just a comment to staff. I am in full support of this. So will you be bringing a report if this passes and you see the data assessed, you'll bring it back to council or to the committee?
That information can be brought forward if council's looking for that. The idea was that we would at least take a look at it, but this was one area that staff had highlighted as potentially could potentially be in conflict with some of the work that's being done in operations right now with DCCs and other sewer calculations. I see.
Okay, but are we will we receive a report back though, or Mr. McInnes then?
Thank you, Your Worship. One of the complexities with this is our current regime right now is there's a parcel tax for sewage that expires in 2026. So to move away from that parcel tax and go to a user pay model, the complexities around doing it before the parcel tax expires in 2026 is quite significant. So we can certainly bring back information on what that may look like, but implementation likely, best time for implementation is when the parcel tax expires in 26.
Okay, understood. I would look forward to receiving the report, even if it's an informational one, just because I think it's a bit of fairness here where you could have one home with a suite that is used as a home office, say, two people living next door to a suite with 8 individuals, or even one household with 8 people and one's using water saving, the other isn't, and we all pay the same. Whereas, water is broken down by use, but I appreciate where we're at in terms of the parcel tax. Like an informational report, I think would be helpful.
And just one other point, if I could, Your Worship, is if we do get to a path to compliance, then those that do comply, they're in our wastewater bylaw, they would pay an additional wastewater charge for a suite. So we possibly could get to a pathway to compliance before the sewer tax, the parcel tax expires.
Yeah, no, and I totally appreciate that. I just, yeah, we'll just have to see. Councillor Logans, then Beddoes, please.
Thank you. It's hard to have my fan off for such a long period of time to speak, but anyhow, I am in support of this. I just wanted to note that since this may be a while before it actually comes to fruition, if it even does, I would not expect this to be a fulsome report from staff, just something quick for information.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's to bookend it or to be a placeholder for a future meeting. It's just, here's where we're at. This is what we know. Share it out with the community, and then, yeah. Councillor Beddoes?
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's some recommendations here, but the one that isn't here is the pathway to compliance. And
we're still just on, like, are you referring to our current motion, which is on the wastewater piece?
Yes, for sure, because the wastewater piece, our CAO even said that, we're liable to get a pathway to compliance before we ever get the wastewater. So I just wanted that to be taken in context, that when we get down to item 6, there may be an item 7. And I don't know whether the rules say that we can debate that, or in my, just a guess at this time, I'd like to send it back to the committee for some work on the compliance side of things. So for what it's worth.
Okay. Okay, we'll see if there's a motion arising. Is that another hand, Councillor Lajeunesse? Is that your hand up? No, okay, sorry. Okay, so I'll call the question on item 2 then. All those in favor, please. And thank you, that's unanimous, thank you.
Oh,
the next. Not. Okay, sorry, Councillor Beddoes was opposed.
Yeah, I'm opposed.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's not unanimous. Councillor Beddoes is in opposition. Item 3, that council implement limited parking areas through signage and enforcement in neighborhoods where parking congestion has been identified. So look for a mover, please. Is anyone prepared to move this? Okay, Councillor Lajeunesse is moving it. Councillor McMath is seconding. So Councillor Lajeunesse, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think if we were to, like some of the areas where there are small lots, small houses with suites, there's parking, cars parked on both sides of the street, and it's like running a slalom trying to drive down the street. There's barely room for one vehicle to get through, and I think if there were to be signage for parking on one side of the street only, I think it would solve a lot of the issues. I attended this meeting, and as soon as the subject of illegal suites came up, the conversation immediately went toward parking, because everyone on the committee felt that parking was the main issue with secondary suites, and not enough parking because there's cars parked all over the road.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McMath is the seconder.
Yeah, I move for discussion. I like the idea of signage. I'm hesitant on the enforcement piece because there is a lot of time, staff time, and money that goes into that. And I think it's more those pieces, and referring back to, I think it ties in with 6, where it's like, how do we start to incorporate new definitions into the zoning so that there's a preemptive approach there? And then perhaps it's just the signage, for example, using Whiff and Spit as an example, where you have a lot of tourists in the area who aren't familiar. And so just simple signage where it's just residential parking only, just as a deterrent. I think that piece would fit in well, but I'm not so inclined on the enforcement one.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Logans and Beddoes.
Thank you. Yes, I understand completely where this motion is coming from, but again, with the enforcement piece, it doesn't work. With most of the signage options, it doesn't work because we screwed up as a municipality before, and it's not like it's sort of sitting on us now, but in the past we've allowed properties not to have sufficient parking. So the reality is we have these suites, we have these units, we have these people with vehicles who need a place to park. And by putting up signs that just say you're not allowed to park here, it's only going to move those vehicles to another street and tick off the neighbors next to them. I think the best thing for us to do is to focus on, what is it, number? Oh, now I've forgotten one of the other motions here, which is more focused on fixing our future and ensuring that we have, number 6, yes, like we don't allow garages to be one of those parking spots. We have to have those parking spots on the properties. I think that's best where this motion or this idea would lie. I don't think this will solve anything. It will only really cause a lot of staff time and effort into something that will cause even more problems for us to fix down the road.
Thank you. Councillor Beddoes, go ahead.
Yeah, I have to agree with my colleague there, is that this doesn't solve anything. All it does is if you take one side of the street parking, where are those people going to go? The cars aren't going to disappear. And it's something that was created in the past, and I don't think it's an easy fix. Again, I would like to certainly look into the future. There could be some limited parking signs in some specific areas, but again, it comes back, no point having signage and not enforcement. People will just say, well, nobody ever comes and checks, what the hell do I care, and park in those places anyway. So I have a bit of problem with it. I mean, I know something needs to be done, but this may not be the right approach. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other comments from members of council? Councillor Bateman, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I know that there's just a few streets in Souk that we're talking about here. There's the committee cited them by name. I won't tonight, but they're the sort of very limited areas that our current 2 bylaw officers could in fact patrol if indeed we were to put up signs one side of the street. However, having said that, I totally get it about cars moving on to other spots and causing problems elsewhere. So I think this more sophisticated path to compliance in future is probably the best way to go.
Yeah, okay. Anything further from any member? So I'll just add that, you know, I do agree with you. I guess I have a question to staff. I seem to recall in another area near Souk Elementary School, there was actually issues where staff had to put up signage because residents, like, they couldn't back out of their driveways, like they were completely blocked. And there were some severe issues there. So in that case, does staff still have the mechanism to do that? Were those particular, I mean, I don't recall that coming before council. It was just the case that people were backing, like they couldn't get out of their driveways because there was no parking, so it had to be done. So in that case, do staff still have the ability to do things when and if those scenarios arise in other parts?
There is some authority in our traffic control bylaw given to the municipal engineer to put up signage. I'm not sure if this particular situation would be covered by that, but I know there is some delegated duty in that bylaw. Just one other question I've got.
When it comes down to like a life safety, yeah.
Yeah.
You're cutting out, Mr. McInnes.
Parking on one side of the road, you know, one of the issues is that it is punitive to people that really have nothing to do with secondary suites. It would affect that entire road, and it's sort of out of the scope of what we were trying to get at with this particular issue.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. McInnes. Councillor McMath.
Just touching on the piece where if people are blocking people's driveways, then that becomes a police issue when you going back to the public safety component. So I don't know, like as far as signage goes, like if someone is blocked in there, then that becomes a call and it becomes a tow, and then there's a punitive experience there.
And that did happen. So
yeah.
I think after all of that, there was signage then that went in to resolve it, and it seemingly has resolved it permanently. It did escalate to that.
Yeah, I think perhaps like the consequence of ultimately that phone call is what did it rather than the signage itself.
Yeah, the signage came in afterwards. I think just as, okay, now everyone, this is, yeah, that was the situation. Okay. And I'll add that, you know, I agree with what others are saying. It'll just create more problems in an area where there is already one. And I agree that we need to, like, we've approved that, maybe not the collective we, but we as council and district have made changes that this has been the result. So now what have we learned from that? And what do we need to do going forward into the future? Oh. Sorry, something, I just got a warning message that I was sort of being kicked out of the meeting. So I think we're all back here. That was interesting. Okay. So yes, no, I would agree. And I will not be supporting the recommendation. I think there's just other work that is needed to do here. And I don't want to see a tenant lose their home and friction in a neighborhood where there may already be friction escalate further. That's not going to help resolve this. It's just going to be trouble. Okay, so I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Now I need to see hands in opposition. If you're in opposition, it looks like Councillor McMath, I think you're opposed, so we're unanimously opposed to this. No one's in favor, all of council is opposed. Okay, the next part is 4, that council maintains a complaint-driven enforcement process in accordance with the District of Suit policy to address suites that are unauthorized. Do we have a mover? Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Okay, speaking to it, go ahead, please, Councillor Bateman.
Well, in the short term, failing anything else, let's just carry on with the system as it currently stands.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm not sure now who seconded it.
Me.
Who was the seconder? Councillor Beddoes. Go ahead. Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, I concur with Councillor Bateman's assessment there. The
Go
best we got at the moment.
Okay, so I see everyone is frozen. Okay, I'm going to turn my video off because it could be, I don't know what's going on. Councillor Beddoes, keep going.
Now you're muted, Councillor Beddoes.
I can't hear Councillor Beddoes at all.
I'm going to blame it on the chair. She did it to me. No, I forgot to do it again. Sorry. No, I just concurred with Councillor Bateman. I think that's the only process at the moment until we get to item 7.
Thank you. Councillor Logans?
Through you to staff, do we need a motion for this? It seems redundant.
It's an excellent question.
So with all the motions that were coming forward, I was looking for something from at the committee level, I should say, about getting just some direction from them, because there was a lot of kind of active suggestions coming forward in the other motions. So I gather the expectations right now. We have a policy in place. Our intent is to continue working within the realm of that policy. So I am satisfied that a motion isn't necessary. This was just something put forward to kind of get a better read from the committee level what their thoughts were on being active enforcement versus the complaint driven.
Thank you. I think unless we have a motion contrary to this, we could probably move on.
Okay, is the mover and seconder comfortable withdrawing this motion? Just given that it's business as normal, it's redundant, not needed. Okay, so this motion has been removed. Does our corporate officer agree with that, with the mover and seconder withdrawing? Is that okay?
I think that's fine, Your Worship.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So the next step is that when pursuing unauthorized suite compliance, the focus should be on immediate life safety concerns.
I'm not
So
sure
look for
this one either.
Is this needed? Is this necessary as well? Is this not what we're doing?
Sorry, was that a question to staff?
Yes. Do you need this motion?
No, this one isn't.
Is this what you're doing, or?
This is what we're doing in addition to all of the bylaw requirements when we're going through a process of investigating an unauthorized suite. So this was a motion put forward by a committee member, but we're satisfied and explained to the committee that we have to take all matters into consideration, not just one aspect of the enforcement process.
Okay, so Mr. Paulo, as I was listening, you were cutting out, but what I heard him say was that this is our current way of doing things. The motion is not required by council at this time, so we don't need to move. We don't need to deliberate on it. Is that what councillors also heard? Okay, so I'm going to just carry on then. That council directs staff on item 6, that council directs staff to examine on-site parking requirements to accommodate suites, notably the minimum size of the small lot residential R3 zone, and that garages not be included in the parking area calculation. So do we have a mover for this? Moved by Councillor Lajeunesse and seconded by Councillor Beddoes. So speaking to it, Councillor Lajeunesse, go ahead as the mover.
Yeah, so again, I was at this meeting and the consensus was that the garages end up being filled with junk because the houses are too small, and so the garages are never used for parking or very rarely, and oftentimes they're not big enough to even house a mid-sized car. So I'm in full support of this.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beddoes is the seconder.
Yeah, for the same reasons, I think that this is a good way to go. And I think we had a councillor mention that these are mistakes from the past. Well, let's not make the same mistakes for the future and go down this line so we don't create this parking problem for any new builds.
Okay, other members of council have comments? Okay, I'll just add that I agree, though I'd like to say treasures, a garage full of treasures.
I have a bunch of those treasures.
Right, sorry, that was my mistake.
Treasures. But no, I do agree that I have, you know, some acquaintances that are unable to fit their vehicle in their garage because of the size. So yeah, I think this would be good. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. I'll call a question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you everyone for working our way through that, and thanks back. Okay, so next up is 11.2, a return to council chambers. So we have deliberated on this and we ask that it be brought forward so that we can keep it just in case, keep in pace with what's happening with COVID, the easing of different restrictions and such. So we have already received it for information. The last report would have had us return to chambers on June 28th. So all we did was receive it. What we could now do is entertain a return to council for an upcoming July meeting. So we would be looking at potentially I'm just looking at the date here. So a return to council chambers for July 12th, or it could be July 26th, or it could be to wait till September. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just see then and say that council members return to council chambers on July 12th, 2021, and that council chambers open to the public after September 7th, 2021, pending approval of step 4 of the BC's restart plan. Would someone like to make that as a motion? Moved by Councillor Lajeunesse, a seconder for it. Moved by Councillor, seconded by Councillor Bateman. So go ahead, Councillor Lajeunesse is the mover. So this would be returned to council chambers on July 12th.
Yeah, I think council chambers is big enough to safely accommodate us all, staff and council, as we were doing before November of last year when we stopped meeting in council chambers. And if there's no changes in kind of the provincial restart plan, then following Labor Day, large gatherings will be permitted, and so allowing the public in at that time seems appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Temple, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. The staff report does suggest that if the public is to return, that we do it for September 20th, because we won't know yet until September 7th if public will be allowed to be in the building, and we'd have to put out any required notices prior to that, to actually having the answer to that.
Okay, so does the recommendation still work? Like it says after September 7th, 2021 pending. It doesn't say September 7th specifically. It says after. So do you need that to be amended to say September 20th, or is that going to stand?
Sorry, I'm just pulling up the dates here just to make it quite clear. Oh, sorry, there isn't a council meeting until September 20th. So yes, that's fine.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Councillor McMath, go ahead, please.
Is my hand up? I don't need to speak on it.
Everyone, I'm having Wi-Fi issues. Councillor Bateman, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, I'm happy with us returning to chambers on July 12th. Yeah, so that's a key point. The next point is the matter of hybrid meetings in future. And I know, I suppose this isn't the time to discuss that, but a number of municipalities are opting for a combination of in-person and virtual as an ongoing policy ever after.
Yeah, so I'll share that the province is enacting legislation. So when the state of emergency lifts, we have 90 days, I believe, to bring other items into compliance. They are making changes to the legislation to enable hybrid meetings going forward. So then what we would need to do is receive that information and update our council procedural bylaw accordingly. So we don't need to make that decision today. I think we have that legislation, we know it's coming, and then we will look at our procedural bylaw and have that discussion at an upcoming meeting. So we have time to, because that's where we need time to make those changes. Okay, other council have anything? Councillor Beddoes, did you have your hand up? Okay, so I'll call the question then. All those in favor, please. And any opposed? That's unanimous, thank you. And then of course, we are still allowing for hybrid. So of course, if you're not well, then you need to stay home and self-isolate, because I don't think we want you in chambers with us. And I mean that with all graciousness. Okay, all right. So next up is 11.3, which is our 2020 Statement of Financial Information. So we have this here. We receive this annually. I'll just ask our staff, is there anything further that you would like to add or introduce to this particular item, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing further to add to the report.
Okay, so I'll look, is there questions from members of council? Okay, then the motion is that council receive this report for information. So that's moved by Councillor Logans and seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Any comments? Okay, all those in favor, please. And none opposed. Thank you. It does confirm that my expenses for external work is not on the taxpayer dollar, as you'll see in my selfie report. Thank you. Okay, 11.4 is the Souk Bluffs staircase. So we have our report. We did not receive a successful outcome to our application. Our staff, however, took that away and found some alternatives for us to consider. So Mr. McInnes, do you have anything further that you would like to add here to share?
No, Your Worship, the report is pretty self-explanatory. We're suggesting that we take some money out of the solid waste strategy business plan, which will not happen this year, and reallocate some of that funding to doing some remediation work on this bluff staircase, not the full replacement, but enough to get hopefully 10 years of use, further use out of the staircase. This won't address the parking issues and the things that we're going to do on Bethany with the grant application, but it should give us the ability to put those stairs back into service.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. McInnes. So the recommendation here, sorry, Council, did you have questions on the staff report? Okay, so the recommendation is that Council directs staff to reallocate $30,000 from the solid waste strategy business plan project to fund costs for the repair of the bluff staircase. Do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Any comments, Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, I'm excited to know that the staff tradesperson, carpenter, will be doing the work here, and that there's no need for requests for proposals or any of that, and a good hire. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lajeunesse.
No, good call to staff, and let's just get it done.
Okay, so I'll call the question then. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Okay, next up is item, let's see, that was 13. Okay, 12 point, we're into bylaws now, starting with 12.1. Zoning amendment bylaw for 2020-2182 Church Road. And this is already come forward before us. So the recommendation here is that council adopt the bylaw cited as zoning amendment bylaw number 791 600-80/2020. Do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Beddoes and seconded
I'll
by.
move it. Yeah.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Speaking to it, go ahead, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I'm going to bring something up here. I'm very disappointed with this. When this came to us originally, we had a variance. We reduced some of the lots from 350 square meters to 250. And it was a little bit of a hot button item. And I know myself, I changed my vote because what was put on the table was some parkland trading. Has that parkland trading taken place? I guess that's a question to staff, first of all.
Okay, I'll ask staff, please. And then did you have other questions, Councillor Beddoes?
No, I could speak to it.
Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. McInnes.
Your worship, all of those discussions were in camera.
Okay, so it can't be shared at this time. Okay, Councillor Beddoes, comments?
Yeah, I would like to deal with this in camera at a later issue and table this to another meeting.
Okay, so there's a desire. So Councillor Beddoes would like to table this item to a meeting following an in-camera discussion on this item. That's your tabling motion. Does that work for you, Councillor Beddoes?
Sure.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Call for a second time. Is there a seconder? Okay, your motion is not being seconded, Councillor Beddoes.
All right.
Okay. Other comments from members of council? Okay, so I'll call the question on adoption then. All those in favor, please. And opposed? Councillor Beddoes is opposed. The motion carries. Thank you. Next up is 12.2.
Point of order.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm going to recuse myself as the proponent in this case as a family member.
Okay, thank you. So
So
Councillor.
if somebody can just text me when you're done with this, I'll be back.
Okay, Councillor Lajeunesse is exiting the meeting. And the recommendation here is that council adopt the bylaw cited as zoning amendment, that council adopt the bylaw cited as zoning amendment bylaw 807 600-84/2021. Do I have a mover for adoption, please? Moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor. My screen's freezing. Can someone please just say something?
Councillor Beddoes seconds it.
Thank you, Councillor Beddoes, for seconding. Any discussion on this item from members of council? Okay, I don't think you're frozen. I'm not hearing anyone, so I'll call the question. All those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so perhaps we can, we will text Councillor Lajeunesse, please.
I'll text him.
Okay, is Councillor, are you back in the meeting, Councillor Lajeunesse? I see that he's joined the participant list, so yes, he is. Okay, thank you. So we're on 12.3, which is the business license policy and bylaws. So over to staff, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a brief PowerPoint presentation. I'll just pull up here.
Thank you. We can see it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to walk everyone through a brief overview of how we've gotten to today's meeting and the things that have happened with both this bylaw and policy to date. So Council first saw the proposed changes to the business license bylaw and policy on February 22nd of this year. Highlights from that meeting were that our current business license bylaw, which is Bylaw 301, and policy were first updated in 2007, and they contained outdated language and process descriptions. Recognizing this, Council directed that a new bylaw should be updated to specifically address types of businesses that didn't exist or weren't popular in 2007, including retail cannabis sales, ride-sharing services, and mobile food vendors, and that the update should also bring the district into alignment with community charter requirements around license suspensions and cancellations. When the new business license bylaw, which is Bylaw 778, was brought forward for the first time in February, farm stands and farm retail sales were also defined as a specific business type for the first time, as staff had identified a need for further parameters around these types of businesses. Farm stands that sell unaltered agricultural products were proposed as being exempt from business licensing, but farm retail sales, or those that sell altered products, were not exempt. Other changes included in Bylaw 778 included updated definitions and a reformat of both the bylaw and the policy. Short-term rentals were not included in the bylaw, pending further recommendations from the Community Economic Development Committee. Council gave first and second reading to Bylaw 778 as presented on February 22nd and directed staff to advertise for public input. Council also adopted a new business license policy at that meeting and repealed the former policy. The business bylaw was brought back to Council at the March 22nd regular Council meeting with an opportunity for public input. At this meeting, a member of the public expressed concern regarding the financial impact on small farms and sought clarity regarding the definitions of farm stands and farm retail sales. Staff clarified that farms have always been required to have a business license and that the proposed changes actually exempted farm stands, or those that don't alter their agricultural products, from this requirement. Council requested additional information regarding external agency regulations, such as the Agricultural Land Commission and Island Health. The next Council discussion on the business license bylaw took place on April 26th. At this meeting, staff provided responses to public and Council questions and concerns that had been raised, including reiterating that Bylaw 778 does not newly introduce requirements for farms to have business licenses. The changes proposed in the new bylaw were the definitions of two types of businesses, farm stands and farm retail sales. Staff reported that research found it's common practice in other municipalities to not require farm stands to hold a business license. Council had asked about requirements for vendors at farmers markets. Staff reported back that individual vendors would be required to hold their own business license unless they fell under the definition of farm stand. At this point in time, the April 26th meeting, the proposed bylaw did not require farm stands to have a business license. As the bylaw currently sits proposed for third reading tonight, all vendors will be required to have a business license because farm stands are being proposed to require a business license. The Agricultural Land Commission confirmed that the district can require business licenses on agricultural land, and Island Health confirmed that while they don't have a list of specific low-risk foods that can be sold at farm gates, it's up to individual vendors to contact them to ensure they're in compliance with health authority regulations. Staff additionally proposed a definition of unaltered be added to the bylaw based on the ALC's farm product processing policy. Council expressed concern regarding financial impact on small farms and a desire to reduce barriers for farmers who supply much-needed local products to the community. Third reading of the bylaw was postponed, pending an amendment that provided further options for farm stands. At the May 10th regular Council meeting, Council debated third reading of the bylaw as amended with proposed changes that included combining the definition of farm stands and farm retail sales. The motion was defeated. Council then referred the issue to the Community Economic Development Committee for a recommendation. and the bylaw remains at second reading with no amendments. At that meeting, Council also directed that all outstanding business license fees up until December 31st be waived, and that staff bring back an amendment to the recently adopted business license policy to clarify a process regarding outstanding fees. At the last Council meeting on June 14th, Council received a recommendation from the CEDC that all businesses should require a license. Council discussed possible options to waive fees for farm businesses, but also expressed concern about assisting certain types of businesses over others. Ultimately, Council supported the CEDC recommendation. The bylaw remained unchanged at second reading, but staff were given direction to bring back an amendment that reflects Council's support of the CEDC recommendation. This brings us to today. 3 documents are included in the agenda that staff feel encompass Council discussion and direction thus far. Bylaw 778 is presented for third reading as amended with the following changes. A definition of unaltered has been included as staff feel it does add necessary clarity. The definition is based on one used by the ALC. Section 6 of the bylaw was amended to align with current practices. Discussions regarding farm stands illuminated the need for further clarity. A new Section 31 provides for fee exemptions for types of activities previously listed in Section 6. Farm stands were removed from the exemption section, and while looking at the bylaw, staff discovered that a standard bylaw provision regarding ongoing bylaw contraventions was missing and have added a new Section 57 to reflect this. Further options for exempting farm stands and/or farm retail sales from a business licensing fee are included in the staff report. An amended business license policy is also included in the agenda. A new Section 4 has been added to clarify renewal timelines. Currently, the only recourse for an unpaid business license is to proceed directly to issuance of a ticket. That fine is double the license fee. By adding a late penalty and a defined date after which a ticket will be issued, clear expectations are set for both enforcement staff and for business owners. Businesses are required to let the district know if they've closed, which will avoid eventual late fees and tickets if they're not warranted. Then the third item presented is an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw. Should Council proceed with the proposed amendment to the business license policy, an amendment to the fees and charges bylaw is required. Staff have recently discovered what appears to be an administrative error in the fees and charges bylaw. When the new fees and charges bylaw was adopted, a schedule of the former bylaw was not included. Research shows that the intention was that the fees remain the same, and correction of this error is included in today's proposed amendment. Options are also included should council wish to exempt certain types of businesses from paying license fees. This could be done at second reading of the bylaw. I'm hopeful that this paints a picture of where we are today, and I'm happy to take any questions. All recommendations and options for council consideration are also included in the body of the staff report.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Temple, for the report. I'll go back now to see for questions from members of council, please. Could you please stop screen sharing, Ms. Temple, as I can't see anybody? Perfect, thank you. Okay, questions from members of council. Anyone? Ugh, okay, Councillor Beddoes, go ahead. I believe you're still muted. You get the prize tonight.
Yes, I know. And here's my little sign to prove it. Anyways, I wasn't quite clear on the end about the fee schedule. Was there a process for a farm stand to be exempted from? They still have to get a license, but the fee. I didn't quite see that in there. Maybe you could elaborate on that one, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Beddoes, through your worship. If council wishes to exempt farm stands from a fee, they would amend both the business license bylaw and add farm stands under the exemption section, or the fee exemption section, which is the new Section 31. And then you would also amend the fees and charges bylaw to state that a fee would not be required. So that's on page 289 of the agenda. In the middle of the staff report there's an option to amend the fees and charges bylaw.
I really know how to proceed with that one. So we're going to pass something here, and then we have to make 2 amendments. Is that right? Or am I understanding this right? Somebody explain it to me again. I'm not getting it, so maybe I'm too hot. I don't know.
Sorry, did you want me to take that, Your Worship?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So what council can do is, so we're looking at 3 different things. So currently the business license bylaw is the first item up for consideration. And as it sits right now, it's recommended that all businesses require a business license. But if council wanted to give 3rd reading as amended to that bylaw, you would add an exemption for farm stands to section 31. And that would handle the business license bylaw. But then the 3rd item for consideration is the fees and charges amendment bylaw. So you would introduce it for first reading as it's presented. Then you would make an amendment to state that it be that farm stands be exempted from a fee, and then give 2nd reading and 3rd reading to that to be brought back to a subsequent meeting for adoption.
Okay, I got it now. I got them all lumped into one, but we're dealing with 3. That's good. I'm okay with it. Thank you.
Okay, next I see Councillor Bateman. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate now to move the recommendation with that, an amended recommendation with the exemption for farm stands.
Yes, so that is what Councillor Bateman is moving, that council give 3rd reading and as amended to the bylaw cited as business license bylaw 778/2021 and amend and then also amend that farm stands are in the exempts. Is that what we're supposed to do, or is the recommendation capture that, or is that what we have to debate?
Yes, so that would be what you would want to debate, is whether you'd like to exempt farm stands, farm retail sales, or both from the bylaw. And then we would amend the bylaw at 3rd reading, depending on whether you would like to proceed in that route or not. And that's just for the business license bylaw, the first item up for consideration.
Okay, so that is not what the recommendation in front of us does. If we pass this, it doesn't do that. So that's where we need to add this. That is what.
To the middle of page 289, there's an option there to amend business license bylaw 778 by inserting a new subsection into 31. And that would be the motion to amend to include the farm stands or the farm retail sales in the fee exempt category.
Okay, Ms. Temple, I'm sorry, those page numbers don't work on the iPad app because of the way, like I only have 34 pages when I read this, so they don't line up. I can't flip to that. So I think what we need to do is to determine whether or not we want the farm stands or the various farms exempted from paying for a business license. I think, to me, that is what we need to determine. And then we would need to either amend this or that or not accordingly. So Councillor Bateman, I'll go back to you for your motion, please.
Well, so if we're dividing these recommendations in 3,
yes.
Part 1, that council give 3rd reading as amended to the bylaw cited as business license bylaw number 778/2021, and that business license bylaw number 778 be amended by inserting a new subsection 31.5 as follows: farm stands. Did that make sense?
And your intent there is just so I can ask if the motion
Do you
covers
want me to
what
motivate?
No, I want to know, is your intent there to have farm stands exempted from paying for a business license fee? So that's what Ms. Temple had recommended you do. Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
Okay, so do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Beddoes. Okay, Councillor Bateman, now please motivate.
Well, I'll just motivate in that, I heard Councillor Logan spoke very clearly and strongly about the need to be fair and across all businesses in Souk. However, in reading the draft OCP the other day, there is a section, objective 3.66 is support and enable a sustainable Souk food system. And there's a policy item, explore opportunities for local property tax and other incentives to encourage food, land preservation and production. So it strikes me that this very small $50 get out of jail card for farm stands, and we're not talking here about, we're going to talk about the inclusion of that. No, the bylaw does include the definition around altered foodstuffs. So this is raw food at a farm gate, effectively. So it strikes me as we're seeking to boost a sustainable food system, and now's the time to make this small step.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beddoes is the seconder, and then I'll go to Councillor McMath.
Yeah, I fully agree with Councillor Bateman, and again, I go back. We're trying to encourage people to produce food locally, and hearing from some of the local small farmers, the profit margin is so small. I'm sure $50 would be welcome. They still need to get the license. It's just that they waive the fee. So I'm in full support of Councillor Bateman.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McMath.
Just to be the devil's advocate here, besides supporting, local food security, like there's another piece here where it's, especially since we've gone through this pandemic, it's that council's job and function, a new priority has become supporting local businesses, period. And so back to Councillor Logan's point, in terms of equity, like I would challenge you and say for $50, like where are we setting precedent here? Like, so local farmers, so then is it local artists? Is it, what's the threshold for what gets waived for a business license? Because I just anticipate that us making an exception here really for $50 is just going to cause a tidal wave of other people coming forward wanting that same exemption. And so I think there is a way, and there's much bigger targets and bigger pieces that this council should be focusing on and supporting that local food security. And I don't think this in particular is the avenue for that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Logans, go ahead.
Yeah, well said, Councillor McMath. I think for anyone to say that I'm against food security, you're quite wrong. That has nothing to do with this. It's about making sure we're doing things properly. And I don't think that taking one type of business and exempting the fee, A, solves the problem, and B, creates equity. We have so many people who could benefit from saving $50, but also I'm confused about Councillor Bateman's statement that now it's a small fee, because up until today it was an argument that it's too much. So again, I don't think that it makes sense to say that one type of business based on one person's comment, and to date we've only had that one comment. I don't think that it's equitable. I think if we want to dig deep into this and look into how we're supporting local farmers and as McMath states, local businesses in general, there are a lot of better ways that we can be spending our time and energy.
Okay, thank you. Other speakers? Any first-time speakers? Okay, Councillor Bateman, second time.
Yeah. So I hope I didn't give the impression, Councillor Logans, that you were against food security. Not at all. And I really respect that viewpoint that you need this equity. But I've liked this bylaw from the get-go, and I think given this rather torturous or laborious or really good process, is another reframe of it, is that we've got a better bylaw as a result. And from the very get-go, the bylaw was presented to us with this exemption for farm stands, given that this is a common practice in other municipalities as they seek to support their food security providers and systems. So yeah, I think I agree that the Community Economic Development Committee and all of the good work that's emerging out of it will in fact change the landscape and create, as that committee and Sue Welke does their work. But at this moment, right now, I think we should just include the farm stands as an exemption and get on with it.
Okay, other speakers? Okay, so we have a motion that's been moved and seconded, and that is that
sorry,
as a
Temple.
Okay. Okay, just saw that. Go ahead, Ms. Temple.
Sorry, Your Worship, I did just want to clarify that the new subsection 31 doesn't exempt a farm stand from the requirement to have a business license, which was something that was found to be common practice among other municipalities, that farm stands weren't required to have one whatsoever. The new section 31 honors the CEDC recommendation that all businesses are required to have a business license, but exempts it from having to pay a fee.
Okay, so that is the motion, and that's where we're heading, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I will call the question then. All those in favor, please, of the motion? Opposed? Councillor Logans and McMath and Lajeunesse are opposed. So we have a tie vote. That's defeated then. So okay, so I'm wondering here, because if we go back to the recommendation, we could tie it again. But let's see what happens. Okay, so now I'm going to go to what is in front of us in the staff report, and that is that council give third reading as amended to the bylaw cited as business license bylaw 778/2021. So it's just now I feel like we're repeating and I'm going to end up with the same outcome. So I don't think I'll go to Councillor Logan's comment.
No,
sorry, I'm picking up a lot of background noise.
My fan, I can start to see the sweat coming on my face. So no, I have no comment then. It seems ridiculous to just fail third reading of an entire bylaw for this one issue when we can look into other ways of bettering it at a later date. So do whatever you want.
Okay, so we have the motion that's been recommended. So I've read it out. I'll look if someone wants to move it.
Yeah, I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Logans. So this is now going back to the staff recommendation. Everyone gets a business license. Everyone pays something. Okay, so I'll call the question on that. All those in favor, please. And anyone opposed? Councillor Beddoes is opposed. The motion carries. Okay. The next part of that is that council adopt CO-12 business license policy. Do I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Logans and seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Any discussion? All those in favor? And any opposed? That one's carried unanimously. So the next one is regards to the fees and charges. So this is that council give first, second, and third reading to the bylaw cited as fees and charges amendment bylaw number 819-752-03 2021. Do we have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Logans and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please. And any opposed? Opposed, Councillor Beddoes is opposed, and that carries. Okay, thank you, everyone. So we're up to item 13, which is a notice of motion here from Councillor Bateman. So this will be read into the motion and deliberated on at July the 12th. The motion reads that sorry, I need my glasses. That Schedule 1 Administrative Services of the District of Sault's Fees and Services Bylaw number 752 be amended to add hourly $20 and seasonal quarterly $200 permit fee options for low impact, low risk commercial use of municipal property, and that the refundable security deposit for low income / low risk activities be reduced to 200. So this is just being introduced. We will debate it at the next meeting. Thank you, Councillor Bateman. So that
Can I
brings
have a
us
point
to
of order, please?
Go ahead. Yep.
Was there an option to waive notice tonight?
Well, you could.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we waive notice tonight on this one.
Okay, so Councillor Bateman is requesting that we waive notice. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Beddoes. So on waiving notice, now Councillor Bateman, you can speak to why you would like us to consider, why you want us to consider this tonight.
Well, the notice of motion speaks for itself. There are significant barriers, financial barriers, preventing low risk, low impact commercial use of our parks by our fitness instructors and by other groups that seek to teachers who make a profit by utilizing our parks as their outdoor classroom during these COVID times and at the heat of summer. What a perfect time to be doing so. It is July 1st in 3 days. And I think this is, you know, the rest of it is stated in the notice of motion, and let's do it now. I would hope that this would be pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beddoes, anything to add to motivate on waiving notice? You're muted again.
There you go. I got it. Yeah, I concur. I mean, like one size doesn't fit all, and there are some people out there, not farmers, obviously, but you know, as Councillor Bateman says, those are pretty stiff things to use our parks when it may be 12 people doing yoga. And so I'm fully in support of this motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Logans.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman, for bringing this forward. I would like to have further discussion on it and invite the public to speak on it as well. I think that would be important. It's not at all that I'm not in support of it. I would hope that we can have a better chat about it than just introducing it and going ahead on a whim.
Okay, thank you. So I'll call the question then. All those in favor of waiving notice? Anyone opposed to waiving notice? Okay, so Councillor McMath and Councillor Logans are, I was opposed as well. So then Councillor Logans, Councillor McMath and Councillor Tate are in opposition. It's a tie vote, so it's defeated. So this will be heard at the July 12th meeting accordingly, and there will be time to get public input on it and so forth. Okay, so moving on, next is our new business item 13.2. You'll see this in the supplementary agenda, and it's a flag policy amendment. So we have discussed this previously, and we've got some more information from our staff. So staff, if you could please introduce this report.
Thank you. I have another quick PowerPoint, mostly consisting of a visual aid. I'll just pull that up.
Okay, we can see it, just needs to be a bit bigger. If you could, perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. As outlined in the staff report, the district's flag protocol is based on Federal Department of Canadian Heritage standards. These standards are also observed by the province and by most municipalities. Flag standards are not legislated and are considered guidelines. The district is not obligated to follow them. Flag positioning does, however, have deep meaning to many people, and observation of federal standards is a strong visual statement intended to convey respect. Our current display of 3 poles doesn't contradict federal guidelines. However, when a 4th flagpole is added, the guidelines change significantly and the arrangement becomes more complicated considering the fixed position of our existing flagpoles. Several options are presented in the council staff report, or in the report. Staff are seeking council direction and approval to proceed with the purchase of necessary flagpoles. Aside from the purchase of flagpoles, council may wish to direct that staff include a clear order of priority for the flying of flags in the flag policy. An additional amendment could be made to align the district's policy with federal guidelines regarding 2 flags sharing 1 pole. Policy amendments on these 2 options are also included in the staff report. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll just share that the MOU group with the Sauk Nation did meet on this. We asked just for their thoughts on this, and the consensus was that the flags be flown at equal height, and then there's an order. Pardon me, and the order would be the Canadian flag on the left, the provincial flag, the Sauk flag, then the municipality flag in that order. And then when we fly the rainbow flag, as is flying right now, the municipal flag would come down and be replaced with the rainbow flag, or like when we fly the poppy flag, that is the one that changes. All other 3 flags remain as is. So questions from members of council? We do have a cost implication that's been identified to find at operating contingency, and then the work would just go ahead there. So other questions? Okay, not seeing any. So the recommendation is that council directs staff to proceed with option 1, the recommended one, and of the staff report and purchase necessary flagpoles, and that funding for the purchase of flagpoles come from operating contingency, and that council directs staff to amend policy CO-004 flag protocol to reflect direction provided and bring back for council adoption at July 12, 2021 regular council meeting. And that would be the order of Canadian flag, BC flag, Sauk flag, Sioux flag. So that is a recommendation. Do we have a mover for it? Moved by Councillor McMath and seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. So on the motion, anything to motivate Councillor McMath?
I don't think a motivation speech is required. It's so straightforward. The cost is irrelevant.
Thank you. Councillor Lajeunesse?
No, nothing to add.
Okay, any comments from anyone else? Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor, please. And anyone opposed? Nope, that's unanimous. Okay, thank you, everyone. And okay, so that brings us to correspondence. There's an item here that I just had pulled about remote control car racing club and their request for a designated parcel of property to conduct various racing car activities on. I did receive some additional information. I thought it was interesting. I don't know how at this time if it's something we could incorporate as a priority, but I thought it was interesting, and so it's here anyway for us to discuss. So anything at this time? Go ahead, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, I too responded to this letter, and I'd be willing to, as we're going to be looking up at this property up by Sea Park, looking into the sports box and possibly a pickleball court, talking to staff, we'll see if there's what other rooms left up there. Not saying that we move on this, but I would like to investigate it a little bit further to see if there is a location up in that area. I could probably create a storm with the neighbors, but I don't know, it seemed like a pretty reasonable request. I don't think it's that large of a space that they're looking for, but I'd like to explore that. But I can do that on my own. I don't necessarily need any direction from council unless they want to give me some direction.
Okay, Councillor Bateman, then Lajeunesse.
Yeah, I was curious about which particular parcels of public land. Is there a short list or a long list of those opportunities with available square footage and that sort of thing?
No, I don't believe so.
No.
I think it's just more as our community evolves and different groups have activities they'd like to progress, then things emerge, right? So.
Yeah, I think the letter references the Horseshoe Club, and I wasn't around in those days, but you were, Mayor Tate. How did they proceed with their
from what I recall, there was a once council had acquired the Souk River land, there was at first a request to explore permission from the ALC to allow it to be converted into parking to help with what is like for the soccer and ball fields that are currently there. And the response back was, no, you cannot use agricultural land for parking. And then as the Horseshoe Club started to grow, they came together and asked, well, see, now this land is here, it's level, it's saying that, horseshoes and ALR and so forth maybe would be a fit. So there was an application made and that was approved. And then there was some, I think, community grant funding, and then volunteers put it together.
Yeah, so from what I do recall is that they worked very hard to earn that piece of district land and made repeated presentations. And so, yeah, I welcome this group to bring forward a more evolved presentation.
Yeah.
I guess my one concern in terms of fairness is that if we do have pieces of district land that are available to user groups, perhaps there needs to be a process where,
please?
Pardon me? Oh.
Sorry about that. I wasn't muted.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So go ahead, please.
I think more power to them. They're coming forward. They're being proactive, and sounds like Councillor Beddoes has some ideas for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lajeunesse. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think if we can accommodate this, I think it's an excellent recreational opportunity that will draw people from outside the community as well. I know I've actually attended these type of events, and they're a lot of fun for people of all ages. The closest example I can think of is Mitchell's Farm. They have an airstrip there for RC aircraft, and they have they call it the biggest little air show in the world there every year in August, and it's really an excellent event. And so I don't know, can't think offhand of the ideal location for it, but there would need to be some parking available. And I think they were looking at the area where the horseshoe pits are, and I guess horseshoes are an agricultural kind of thing, so maybe that's why the ALC allowed the horseshoes there. But that would be a good location, I think, because there is parking available along Souk River Road and possibly at Threadmill Park. But I think I'd be happy to see this move forward in the right location.
Okay, so for myself, I don't know of the suitable location, but I also think it's not up for us to make that determination. So it's more, and I don't want to do work on something I know nothing about, actually. I did participate once in an indoor event where we could race the cars, and it was like a pop-up type of display. So in this case, I think what may be appropriate is that we receive this for information and then direct staff to invite the resident and other users to present as a delegation to an upcoming council meeting. And then in the meantime, as more exploratory work comes out and we're out and about, we can gather more information about this on our own. But it's just, I think it's just better to hear from the actual users and what work. I mean, the other groups are all organized and they're doing, and I'm not saying this group isn't, but we know with pickleball, they're fundraising, they're doing a lot of things to message and to advocate for what they're using. So we're getting something from a group that is using the equipment as opposed to, okay, I see you want this, let's go build it. And then they'll say, oh, that isn't actually what we envisioned. What are you guys building over there? So it has to kind of come grassroots in that way, and that's how like the bike park has been done, lacrosse has been done, is by the users bringing these initiatives forward. But I found it interesting, and so I'd be curious to get more information, but I think it's the case. So I'm gonna maybe ask for that then, that council receive this for information and direct staff to connect with the resident and invite them to an upcoming committee of the whole or regular council meeting to present their request as a formal delegation. Would someone be comfortable moving that?
Yep. So moved.
Okay, moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Lajeunesse. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, all those in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we're up to item 16, council verbal reports. Do we have any verbal updates from any member of council? Go ahead, Councillor Beddoes.
Yeah, just today we had a very extensive OCP meeting, went on for hours. We had the draft come to us. We've reviewed it in its entirety. We made numerous recommendations, and I must say staff and dialogue were very receptive to pretty much everything that we said. They were thinking along the same lines, and it was very refreshing to see all three groups were sort of on the same page in this. So the next step is it goes back to dialogue and then sent back to us about the 14th of July, and we'll get another week to go through it before we present it and modify it to council, then go to the public. It is a document, very fluid, and we may, I don't know until we hear back from dialogue, we may need a bit more time. I don't think it'll be months, but it could be some weeks in order to give it its full coverage. But a lot of work went through it today, and I was very, very proud of the committee and the amount of work that they put into it. And again, staff was very receptive to everything that was brought forward. So it was a good day, very good day.
Thank you, Councillor Beddoes, for that update and the work you're doing with the committee, and our gratitude to committee members. Councillor Lajeunesse, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that my brain's kind of fried right now, but I did attend the OCP meeting today as well, and just as an observer. And there was some discussion early on about the kind of the intro to the document. And just after that, I read the annual report, and I thought our story section of the annual report, some of the language from that would fit really nicely into the intro to the OCP document. And so that's just a suggestion.
Okay, thank you. Share that with your committee or pass that on. Councillor Bateman, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was at the meeting as well, and it was remarkable. I think we did a really good job in choosing that steering committee, frankly. And yeah, it was a fascinating process, and it's a really interesting draft that is very much a first draft that we can all have a look at. And yeah, so good work there. The Climate Action Committee had the second of its workshops last week, and we've come up with a sort of a timeline for the remainder of the year and focusing on three things. One of them is the 7% solution dedicated to GHG reductions. Very much as the workshops agreed, we must focus on a limited number of achievable actions that will have an impact, a measurable impact. So those two things are home heating and cooling, and a reduction in the use of internal combustion engine vehicles. And there's various strategies to get there that we'll be presenting, or Anna Russell from the data group will present at the July 19th Committee of the Whole, provided all goes as planned at tomorrow night's meeting. We're also working on a framework for a Sooke Climate Action Plan and a citizen engagement strategy for climate action. So that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bateman. Any other comments from members of council? Okay, I'll just close then by thanking you all for the work that you're doing. Thank you, staff, and stay cool. I think the heat cap is starting to break up a bit. Who knows what else will follow? Never heard of heat cap before, so I'll just add that to new things like you're muted and Zoom fatigue and whatever. Okay, Councillor Logans, I see your hand.
Sorry, one last quick thing. Congrats to the grads of 2021.
Well said, Councillor Logans. Okay, so
Mayor Tate, I'm going to leave this in your in basket. You probably need it a hell of a lot more than I do.
well, thank you very much. I look forward to that. And yeah, we should have thought of like a prize, because I think you've earned it tonight, but it'll be somebody else the next night for
Can
sure.
you use it in person?
You should just turn it around and tape it to your monitor there.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, there it is. Okay, well, sorry for a bit of the Wi-Fi disruptions. I've ordered some new equipment, so that'll help just in time for our return to council. It's excellent. Okay, all right, so on that, I will call for a motion to adjourn, please. Adjournment moved by Councillor Lajeunesse and seconded by Councillor Bateman. Thank you. Stay cool, everyone. Be well. All those in favor? And it's unanimous. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Take good care. Good night. Thank you, public, for viewing.